host, sabrinasalvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right. Happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show. And you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And welcome back, fam. I hope you are ready for a good show. Get comfortable. We're going to have some fun tonight. We're going to have some fun with tonight's show, especially since someone just sent me something, a little bit of inside data about how these third parties are doing in these swing states. So hold on for that. So shout out to you who sent me that. But we're going to have a good show. We got a lot to talk about, ladies and gentlemen. We have so much to get into. So I hope you're ready for it. I want to go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who's a Sabby patron. Thank you, guys. Really do appreciate your help around here. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories: Ultimate, Sabinators, Sabsters. There's also Sabbies in the mix. Yeah. And there's also members. Thank you guys so much for your support. I really do appreciate you. And I believe I announced the newbies last night. Yeah, I announced them last night. So I just need to update that. Sorry about that, guys. But yeah, we're going to have a good show tonight. We got some things. We got a little bit of inside scoop that I literally got last minute before the show started. So just keep that in mind. Now, what are we going to talk about tonight? Let's go ahead and share that thumbnail, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get that rocking and rolling. Yeah. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are discussing AOC and the Breakfast Club attacks Jill Stein. You will see in that picture next to Jill, who's in the middle. Jill is loving it. She's just like, bring it on, bring it. And AOC is probably in the background like, it's already been brought. Yeah, so the woman to the left of Jill in the white shirt, that is Angela Rye. She is one of the, I guess, guest hosts of the Breakfast Club. She's not on there every time. She came in with a lot of heat towards Jill Stein and Bill Ware. We'll get into all of that. And then, of course, AOC went on the attack after Jill and Butch had that interview on the Breakfast Club. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about who Angela Rye is, because I think you need to know about her background so you understand why the talking points that were made. And we're going to dive into all of that. And I'm going to show you a little bit of inside information about how these third parties are performing in these states, information that you have not seen yet. And it'll show you why the Democrats are panicking the way that they are. We're also going to discuss RFK Jr. is warning Donald Trump. This is kind of breaking news. RFK Jr. has some things to say about Donald Trump's debate, and he's given a warning out there about him. So we're going to get into that. We're also going to discuss, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, another woman has come forward about Diddy. Yes. And you may be familiar with who this woman is. This is not a Jane Doe. This is someone that you'll see. We're also going to discuss, and this is definitely breaking news today, Boeing has a huge strike that is underway. Will that affect you in any way, shape, or form? We're going to get into all of that because I'm going to tell you, okay, this is huge. This is huge news. And we also have another story that I want to discuss. And this one is about Kamala Harris, Jake Tapper. Jake Tapper apparently has some pretty not so nice things to say about Kamala Harris's debate performance and her campaign. I was actually shocked he said these things, kind of sending, I guess, a warning message to Kamala Harris. So we're going to dive into that as well. And you're also going to see how a group of Black women feel about Kamala Harris's performance as well. So we're going to get into all of that tonight. We'll finish up those California ballot measures. And yeah, get comfy, get excited, because we're about to do the damn thing. Yeah. Let's go ahead to some of the comments first. Let's give a shout out to Susan Mulvey. I was about to say Mulvaney. Susan Mulvey for becoming a Sabby member. Thank you, Juanita. Hey, Sabby. Hey, everyone. Angela Rye. Oh my God. If you guys are not on Twitter, I got to tell you, on Twitter, Angela Rye has been getting all the smoke. It started yesterday and it has continued today. Shout out to Jasmine. Quick Amazon hate rant. Friday the 13th movies should have been free, especially today, not for rent or purchase. I agree with you. I agree. But you know they're going to try to make money somehow, right? And shout out to Blueser. Sabby woke up this AM ready for the show tonight. Thanks for your show and keeping our community informed. You are welcome. You are welcome. And thank you. Let's dive in, shall we? Shall we go ahead and dive in? Let's do it. Okay. Yesterday, before I went live, I saw a headline that said that Boeing machinists could possibly go on strike as of this morning. So I was expecting to hear an announcement early this morning, but apparently they decided to go on strike at midnight last night. And I want to show you why this is such a huge deal. Let's go to this clip here. I believe this is from CNBC. And we're going to dive into this. Like, again, what does this mean for everybody? Will it affect you as someone who is, you fly? Like if you're a frequent flyer, will this affect you? Will this impact you in any way, shape, or form? We're going to get into all of that. Let's dive in.
Boeing's machinists union going on strike for the first time in 16 years after rejecting the jet maker's latest contract offer. Our Phil LeBeau is on the ground in Washington State with the latest. Good morning, Phil.
Good morning, Carl. We are outside the 737 MAX facility here in Renton, Washington. There's no production going on this morning. Why? Because these guys who are usually in working on a 737 are out here picketing. Late last night, the Machinist Union announced that 94.7% of their members who voted rejected the tentative agreement between Boeing and the union. Not only that, 96% then voted to go on strike. The deal included a 25% raise over 4 years. Time and again, I've heard from members saying that's not enough. We thought we'd get closer to 40%. That's what they're looking for. So 33,000 machinists have walked off the job. This is the first strike since 2008. And
we're going to pause here for just a second because I do want to show you something about these numbers. So some of you may see this and you say, wait, 25% raise over 4 years. Like that sounds like it's a good deal. Why is that a problem? So they were asking for at least 40%. This is in the Seattle area. That's an expensive place to live. So when we've gone over the out of reach cost of living report for 2024, again, like there's a certain amount of money that you need to make per hour to do well in that particular area. It's the most expensive area in Washington state. So that 25% raise, remember, that was just over 4 years. It's not all at once. And they were asking for 40. So just keep that in mind.
For Boeing management, it increases pressure to find a way to get a deal done. The company releasing a statement saying the message was clear that the tentative agreement we reached with the IAM leadership was not acceptable to the members. We remain committed to resetting our relationship.
Oh, hold on. Sorry, the video, guys. Try this again.
This is the first strike since 2008. And for Boeing management, it increases pressure to find a way to get a deal done. The company releasing a statement saying the message was clear that the tentative agreement we reached with the IAM leadership was not acceptable to the members. We remain committed to resetting our relationship.
So I don't know why it's doing that with that part of the video, but it didn't do this earlier. I'm sorry, guys. Let me redo this. Sometimes it happens with these videos. Let me just fast forward, because I did want to show.
Was not acceptable to the members. We remain committed to resetting our relationship with our employees and the union, and we are ready to get back to the table to reach a new agreement. How long that will take remains to be seen. As you take a look at shares of Boeing, keep in mind that the estimated costs, and they're all over the map, anywhere between $500 million and $1 billion, depending on how long this strike lasts. The history between the machinists and Boeing is not good in terms of resolving strikes quickly. The last one in 2008 went 58 days. On average, if you look at the last four, they go about 45 to 60 days, depending on which strike you look at. Bottom line is this, guys. The machinists want more than 25%. They'd also like to have the eyes of these workers who are on strike. They want to get closer to 40%. Guys, back to you.
Boeing's machine.
Yeah, so that's a big deal here for Boeing. Again, like I said yesterday, I was waiting to see if they were actually going to go on strike. I want to go into a little bit more detail here, and then I'm going to tell you who this would impact. So striking Boeing factory workers say they are ready to hold out for a better contract. So yeah, this is the big news in the world of labor today. Blue collar workers from Boeing walked picket lines in the Pacific Northwest instead of building airplanes on Friday after they were overwhelmingly rejected a proposed contract that would have raised their wages by 25% over 4 years. 33,000 machinists will not disrupt airline flights anytime soon. So listen to this. But it is expected to shut down production of Boeing's best-selling jetliners, marking yet another setback for a company already dealing with billions of dollars in financial losses and a damaged reputation. The company said it was taking steps to conserve cash while its CEO looks for better ways to come up with a contract that the unionized factory workers will accept. So let's talk about the reputation here for just a second before we get into the rest of this. We also got to remember Boeing, there were two men that were destined to testify against Boeing. They end up dead. Boeing has not had a good reputation in the past couple of years because of the way that they've handled like production, trying to speed through processes, and other people, choosing to be whistleblowers about that, ultimately have met their demise. So the company just does not have a good reputation. And now they have 33,000 machinists that have decided to go on strike. The stock for Boeing fell 3.7% today, bringing its decline for the year to nearly 40%. The strike started soon after a regional branch of the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers reported that in a Thursday vote, 94.6% of participating members rejected the contract offer that the union's own bargaining committee had endorsed, and 96% of them voted to go on strike. So that's a pretty significant amount. Shortly after midnight, striking workers stood outside the Boeing factory in Renton, Washington, with signs reading, "Historic contract, my ass. Have you seen the damn housing prices?" What I tell you guys, car horns honked and boombox played songs including Twisted Sisters, "We're Not Gonna Take It," and Taylor Swift's "Look What You Made Me Do." I'm loving all of this. I'm loving all of this. "We're not gonna take it. No, we're not gonna take it." Many of the workers who spoke to reporters said they considered the wage offer inadequate, given how much the cost of living has increased in the Pacific Northwest. John Olson said his pay had increased just 2% during his 6 years at Boeing. Can you imagine that? Just 2% over 6 years. The last contract we negotiated was 16 years ago, and the company is basing the wage increases off of wages from 16 years ago. So again, not adjusting for inflation. And this is happening all across the country. And people wonder, why are these people going on strike? This is why. Others said that they are unhappy about the company's decision to change the criteria used to calculate annual bonuses. Look at the mask. This guy has a mask and it says strike. I love it. I love it. I love this one too. This picture, happy strike day, the 13th. I love this. They definitely played into the Friday the 13th there. The machinists make $75,608 per year on average, not counting overtime. And that would have risen to 106,000, a little over 106,000 by the end of the proposed 4-year contract, according to Boeing. Okay. For those who thinks that that sounds like a lot of money, again, in Washington state, that's another one of those states that is very expensive. So we can talk about those states when we talked about it before for the Outer Reach report: California, Hawaii, Massachusetts, New York, Washington state. Like, these states are expensive to live in. And what has happened is because they have not renegotiated, I guess, since the past 16 years, they are already behind where they should be for wages if we're calculating in inflation as well. But it's not just Boeing that is falling into that situation. There are other companies that have also had this issue where their contract hasn't been renegotiated for so many years. And now's the time for them to renegotiate. And they're already behind the ball where they should be for wages. So just keep that in mind. Under the rejected contract, workers would have received 3,000 lump sum payments and a reduced share of health care costs in addition to pay raises. Boeing also met a key union demand by promising to build its next new plane in Washington state. However, the offer fell short of the union's initial demand for pay raises of 40% over 3 years. The union also wanted to restore traditional pensions that were axed a decade ago, but settled for an increase in new Boeing contributions to employee 401k retirement accounts of up to $4,160 per worker. Let me highlight this 401k here for just a second. This is what companies have kind of moved towards, because the reality is, back in the day, back in my parents' day, and maybe more so my grandparents' day, some of these companies used to give employees actual pension. And so when they retired from the company, they would actually still receive a pension. So fast forward to my generation, and I've never seen that. I've never had a job where I received a pension or was given a pension, if I were to retire or leave the company. So things have definitely changed. What they have done is they have implemented this 401k, right? So they tell you, oh, let me show you your compensation package. You make $75,000 a year here with us at Boeing, but your compensation package is actually $125,000 when you add in all the benefits we give you. And of course, some of those benefits include the 401k, which actually doesn't make any sense because that's your money anyway. How are you including that in the compensation package as something that you're giving me when it's actually my money that's going into it? So a lot of companies have moved to that model. The head of the union local IAM District 751, President John Holden, said the union would survey members to find out which issues they want to stress when negotiations resume. Boeing responded to the strike announcement by saying it was ready to get back to the table to reach a new agreement. The message was clear that the tentative agreement we reached with IAM leadership was not acceptable to the members. Duh. We remain committed to resetting our relationship with our employees and the union. So that's the response there from the company. And you can see the machinist there. And let me tell you something. You can't do anything at a lot of these factories without machinists. You kind of need these guys. And something here that I want to highlight as well. During the strike, Boeing will lose an important source of cash. Airlines pay most of the purchase price when they take delivery of a new plane. West said that Boeing, which has about $60 billion in total debt, is now looking at ways to conserve cash. He declined to estimate the financial impact of the strike, saying it would depend on how long the walkout lasts. So, before the strike, New CEO Kelly Ortberg gathered feedback from workers during visits to factory floors, and he is already at work to get an agreement that meets and addresses their concerns. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre and Biden administration officials have contacted Boeing and the union. So let me put this out right here. Of course, the Biden administration is going to contact them because they rely on Boeing, right? Defense relies on Boeing. So, they were going to reach out just like they reached out to the railroad workers, right? We believe that they need to negotiate in good faith and work towards an agreement that gives employees benefits that they deserve. It would make the company grow stronger as well. So, let's talk about who will be affected by this, because this is the part I think a lot of people really want to hear. What does the Boeing strike mean for flyers? Those of you that like to get up in the air and fly away. Let's get into that. We'll close this little video here. It is not clear whether the labor stoppage will have an impact for the flying public, although there are concerns about a potential effect on air travel next summer. U.S. carriers that rely heavily on Boeing planes include Southwest, United, and Alaska Airlines. Southwest is horrible, by the way. In a statement, Southwest said its operations were unlikely to be affected in the short term by any production delays Boeing may end up suffering. Earlier this year, Southwest Airlines took steps to address potential delivery disruptions. As a result, we currently have the fleet needed to fulfill our upcoming schedules. We remain in close communication with Boeing. Southwest exclusively uses Boeing 737 planes made in Renton, Washington, one of the sites now on strike by members of the International Association Machinists of and Aerospace Workers. So let's go forward here. When it comes to United, a United spokesperson said the carrier was working with Boeing to understand what the impact to their airline delivery schedule may be. And a spokesperson for Alaska Airlines did not immediately respond to a request for a comment. So I do just want to jump in here and say that this really all depends on how long this strike is going to last. If it's just a short strike, it seems like for the most part, they won't be affected. But if this strike with Boeing continues for quite some time, then Southwest, United, and Alaska Airlines will be impacted. And of course, the federal government has reached out to Boeing because that affects defense as well. So just something to keep in mind. I don't know how long this strike is going to last. They just went on strike like as of midnight. But we will have to wait and see, ladies and gentlemen. But again, this goes back to the cost of living issue. I think a lot of those workers at Boeing wouldn't be asking for the amount that they're asking for if the housing prices were affordable, if rent was affordable where they live in Washington State. Again, that is one of the more expensive areas. And also, contracts should not wait 16 years to be renegotiated. And that's part of the reason why, anytime we're having like inflation, especially for a longer period of time, I think these contracts need to have new negotiations, because the reality is that 25% over the next 4 years, that does not adjust for inflation. And that is why those employees decided to go on strike. So we will keep an eye on this and we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. Fam. Yeah. Let's go to some of the comments here. Sandra said, Boeing is in major trouble anyway, I heard, due to the sanctions on China. They're not able to get the necessary components for aircrafts. Oof. Boeing has not had a good past couple of years. Spark Joy, Air Canada pilots are about to go on strike as well. Wow. Okay. That's another one I need to keep an eye out for. I'm sorry, guys. My hair is bothering me. And it's like not staying in place. And it's really bothering me. Like, just stay. Don't move. Okay. Obese Dragonfly. I'm a machinist, and I can say machinists with the kind of skill required to work at Boeing should be getting paid way more than that. That's good to know. I like your picture there. It's interesting. And thank you, Eric Gray, for the super chat. Every labor union needs to be an anarcho-syndicalist federation so that they are fully worker self-directed. Thank you so much for that. Well, we'll keep a lookout for it, guys. We will keep a lookout. Does it? Oh, Charlie. Oh, thank you, Charlie. I hope so. It just keeps moving. Anyway, moving on. All right. Start us off by hitting that like button. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. And we're moving on to our next story. So we've spoken about the debate on this show since the debate happened. We live streamed it here. And since then, there has been a number of responses to the debate. And now we are getting a response from RFK Jr. And I was kind of surprised by this. As you guys know, he decided to drop out of some of the states and to co-align with Donald Trump and to work with his campaign. That's why I was surprised when RFK Jr. had negative comments about the debate towards Donald Trump. But I think people should kind of see this as a warning sign. He's trying to warn Donald Trump about some of the mistakes that he made during the debate. But not just that. RFK Jr. is also trying to explain to Donald Trump that apparently he believes that after that debate, Donald Trump has lost independent voters. Ooh, taboo. Let's get into that story.
All right, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. kind enough to join us this day after the big debate. It's always good to have you, Robert. I just wonder, you're a pretty smooth debater in your own right. Were you painting for Donald Trump? A lot of his biggest supporters say that he just didn't bring his A game to the debate last night. Karl Rove saying that the debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump was a train wreck for him. Do you agree with that?
I thought, or I just watched the previous segment that you did with Doris Kearns, who I've known for, at least 40 years, and her husband, Dick Goodwin, who's very, very close friends since I was a little boy. And I think I haven't seen a better assessment or a more fairly delivered assessment than the one that she gave. I think that Vice President Harris clearly won the debate in terms of her delivery, her polish, her organization, and her preparation. I think on substance, President Trump wins in terms of his governance, but he didn't tell that story. In fact, the first question was an extraordinary lost opportunity because there's a question, and I think Doris pointed out that she never answered, which is, are Americans better 4 years later? And there's really no argument for saying that they are by all the indicia by which you measure social deterioration. We have doubled the inflation rate. The housing rates have doubled in the last 4 years. There's 15 million more people, Americans living in poverty. We have these enormous suicide rates, enormous overdose rates, and we're in 2 wars, and all of these things can be attributed to the poor leadership from the Biden-Harris team, and that's the argument that he should have been making. But
I agree with him, what he just said there, his assessment there, you guys, that that question that was proposed to Kamala Harris about, are Americans better 4 years later? Well, the answer to that is no. I mean, the biggest complaint from people has been the economy. The biggest domestic complaint from people has been the economy. We're not talking about foreign policy, but the biggest domestic complaint has been the economy. And I've heard it from people from all different political ideologies and different income brackets. So I think that Donald Trump really could have took that and really ran with it. But also, it's important to mention that the moderators, and we talked about this last night, the moderators did not fact check Kamala Harris. They did not push back on her because she didn't answer that question. Are Americans better 4 years later? No, we're not. Financially, no, we're not.
But he got distracted. And I think it's unfortunate because I think he really had an airtight argument for his presidency. but he was not able to make that case to the American public.
He says, and he's commented a couple of times today, that he won the debate, and all the polls show that he won the debate. I haven't seen a single one to show that. What did you think of that reaction?
Well, I have seen those polls. You know, they're not. They're polls that you see on, you know, on the internet, and a lot of them probably have statistical problems with them.
Right.
But I would suspect that the polling over the next week is going to show, you know, probably a slight drop in his support, particularly among independents, as people migrate, you know, because I think it was the first introduction that Harris had to the American people. She's been very skillfully kind of hidden, and she has not done an interview, and this was really an ideal forum for her because there are these 90-second sound bites, and you don't really go into the next level. And
Pause. I don't know if I would call this Kamala Harris's first introduction to the American people, because she ran for president in 2020. So I guess unless you weren't paying attention to the Democrat primary debates during that time, maybe then you had no idea who Kamala Harris was. But I tend to remember there was a lot of buzz around her when she first announced that she was running again. I told you I saw her speak before. So when I saw her in New Hampshire, the line was like wrapped around the block, and like I'm talking like double times around the block for people to try to get into the church in Portsmouth to see her speak. So her name was definitely out there. And then not only that, but I remember when she announced that she was running in California in 2020, there was a large crowd there, a lot of sorors, and they mentioned that on the news. They said a lot of her AKA sisters are here. And I remember that was like a big deal. So I don't know if I would call this her first introduction to the American people, but I guess if you weren't paying attention during the primary races, then maybe you weren't familiar.
I think that she's very vulnerable in a like a long form interview that she'd do on a podcast or on a program like this. I think this is the ideal forum for her to display, you know, her kind of skills, and I think she did that very well. And I think President Trump did not tell his story, which is a very, very good story about his presidency. And I think that he didn't convey that as well as he could.
It almost kind of seemed like he wasn't trying to do that, though. Like when you're going into that type of debate, like since he had already been president and since Kamala Harris is a part of the current administration, he could have easily listed a number of things that he did that he feels helped the economy or helped the American people, and what the Biden administration did, you know, as an opposite, and how he feels that actually hurt people economically in this country. He could have done that, but it seems like he wasn't really trying to focus on what he did that people actually liked. Like, for example, I don't support Donald Trump, and I didn't support him then either. But one of the things that has been said to me over and over again is that some people said that they felt like he was good for small businesses. I heard that from a number of people. Like, people are like, yeah, you know, the breaks that he gave to us for small businesses has been great. I heard it over and over and over again. And I'm kind of surprised, like, he didn't mention those types of things. I don't know. I don't know, but I agree with RFK there. Like, he could have focused more on the things that he did that he felt made Americans happy, because he knows that obviously the moderators and Kamala Harris are going to focus on the things that he did that made Americans very unhappy, right? So you have to be able to counter that by focusing on what you consider to be your accomplishments.
But just to be clear then, Robert, you are not changing your mind or fearing that you hooked up with the wrong horse here, that you're still supporting him to take the White House?
No, on the issues that I consider important. I mean, look, I was listening to the substance, and on the substance, President Trump wins. On the war, Vice President Harris bragged about the endorsements by John Bolton and by Dick Cheney and 225 neocons who have come out to support Vice President Harris this week. These are the people that gave us the Iraq War. These are the people who have given us the endless forever wars. These are the people who gave us the Patriot Act, the surveillance state, the censorship state. And they're not changing their affiliation to the Democratic Party because they've changed their beliefs or their values. They're changing it because the Democratic Party has dramatically changed. It's become the party of war. The party that I grew up with, the party of Robert Kennedy and John Kennedy, is gone. That was the party of peace. It was the party of civil rights, constitutional rights, free speech, and abhorrence of censorship. It was the party of the working class, of cops and firefighters, of labor unions.
Yeah.
And the Democratic Party today is the opposite. It's the party of war. It's the party of the wealthy. 70% of the wealth now is controlled by the Democrats, 30% of the Republicans. So you've had this inversion. And it is the party of censorship. It's the party of surveillance. And I think that's
Let me pause here for just a second. That's another thing I do want to mention as well. Why didn't Donald Trump attack Kamala Harris for bragging about getting an endorsement from Dick Cheney? Again, another warmonger, lied the American people into that war, all the people that died because of it. I feel like maybe he could have been afraid, well, I can't go after Dick Cheney because he's a Republican and I'm running on the Republican Party. But I would actually assume that his supporters wanted to move away from that style of politics. They wanted to move away from the warmongering. They wanted to move away from the Dick Cheney, George W. Bush style of Republican politicians. I would argue maybe that's why they were supporting him, right? Some people had said to me when he ran the first time, they said, we voted for politicians over and over again and that they wanted to vote for Donald Trump because he was a businessman. They said, maybe that's what we need in the White House, is a businessman and not a politician. So it almost seemed like, again, like her flip-flopping on the border, like Kamala Harris has moved to the right on some issues. And I think Donald Trump felt like he couldn't attack that because then he would be attacking the Republican Party, who is also to the right on those issues, or on the right on those issues. But I think the point that he could have made is that this person is whatever they want to be whenever it's popular to be it. That's the point that I would have made, because how do you go from I will ban fracking, when she ran last time, to, oh, no, I would never do that. And how do you become this border hawk all of a sudden when you've been in the administration all this time and you were assigned to the border and you just kind of say, let things go and say, I've never been to the border. We all remember that interview, right? So he could have flipped that in his favor and made the case for the fact that this is not someone that is consistent on the issues. This is someone that is whoever you want them to be as a politician, depending on what is popular at that point in time. She supported Medicare for all because at that point in time, when she ran in 2020, it was a popular issue. So everybody needs to pay attention to that. Like, that's what I would have done. I'm not on that stage, but if it were me, I would have made the case for the fact that she's not really consistent.
Remain for you, Robert, right?
Those,
regardless of the debate performance, those forces remain. The reason why I want to get back to the debate, if you don't mind, Robert, is that we're used to lots of presidential debates, not all the time. Richard Nixon, after his experience with your uncle, didn't debate in 1968 or in 1972. But when your uncle was debating Richard Nixon, I believe there were 4 debates that year, 3 debates, the last go round, 3 debates before that go round. This might be a one and done deal. What do you think of that?
Oh,
well, I've heard 2 things from the Trump people today, and I think that they're, at this point, that they want a second chance at a debate, and that President Trump is confident that he'll do very well the next time around. But I don't know whether the Harris campaign will agree to that. So I don't know what's going to happen. And as you know, Neil, this is the craziest election in history. It's the craziest election that you've ever seen. that I've ever seen. It's topsy-turvy. You look back at just a month ago when in the days after the shooting at Butler, President Trump was invincible. And then President Biden pulled ahead. President Biden drops out. President Harris pulls ahead. You have the convention. She doesn't get the bump. President Biden pulled it over the last week. President Trump has pulled ahead again. So this all happened in this very, very accordion time frame. We have 52 days left in this election, and I would not be a person to make predictions about what's going to happen next.
No, I hear you on that. If you heard and read the script, you'd think it was something out of Hollywood. It's real. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., great seeing you.
Okay, so I don't know. RFK Jr. there almost kind of sounds like, and I know someone mentioned it in the chat, but I was going to mention it as well. It almost sounds like he has some type of buyer's remorse. And I'll highlight the person who said this in the chat. Where is it? Oh, not that one. Sorry. I'll find. Oh, here it is. Edward, is Kennedy having buyer's remorse? That's what it almost kind of sounds like in a way, but I don't know. Now, he talked about this also on Piers Morgan's show. So he's going on to multiple shows talking about how he doesn't think that Donald Trump did well, and also that he is losing independent voters. Here was RFK Jr. coming up on Piers Morgan's show.
Sure. Well, joining me now is the former independent presidential candidate, now part of Trump's transition team, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Brilliant to have you back, Robert. How are you?
Piers, thank you for having me.
What did you honestly think about last night's debate? I'll tell you what I honestly thought. I thought Trump lost and Kamala Harris won.
Yeah, I think that Vice President Harris was better prepared and that she was much more polished. I think that she also had the hosts on her side, which I think allowed her to get away with some of the statements on the substantive issues. I mean, for me, Piers, on the substantive issues, I think Trump does better. His delivery is bad, and I think a lot of the things that Frank Luntz just said are accurate. But the first question, I'll give you an example. The first question, which I think was the most important question of the night, was, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago?
She didn't answer.
She never answered that.
Yeah.
She never answered it. And the hosts were calling Trump on, and debunking and fact checking him on all of his questions, but they did not discipline her on that. And
let me ask you that, Robert. So why didn't Trump then jump in and say, you haven't answered the question, Kamala, are we better off now than we were before I left office? And it was his failure to jump in and get the answers he wanted or the questions he wanted. I just felt that was weird. He just didn't seem to want to do that.
Well, is part of the reason because the mics were supposed to be muted? Do you guys think that's part of the reason why he did not jump in and do that kind of thing? Because there were sometimes when I noticed, like, it seemed like she was trying to jump in, but you could barely hear her because her mic was muted. So I wonder if that's why they did not do that type of exchange. Because you could notice she tried to do it a couple times too. So I don't know. Maybe that's one of the things about having the mics muted,
Quite sure whether he was told not to or was told to behave himself, whatever it may be. He was very un-Trump-like last night.
Un-Trump-like.
Yeah, he actually, historically, he's been one of the greatest debaters in American history. I mean, he dispatched 16 opponents in a row in 2016, but last night he was not showing that side, and I think he lost a huge opportunity to really showcase his policies. Like Frank said, he was the better president. I mean, we have doubled the inflation, the housing prices have doubled. There's 15 million more Americans in poverty. The suicide rates have gone through the roof. The drug overdoses, all the indicia of social deterioration have increased dramatically and then the immigrant problem, which I think he talked about constantly, but I think one well-articulated response on that would have been much more effective than the way that it was done. And then on the issues of war, I think, Vice President Harris was bragging about her endorsements by people like Dick Cheney and John Bolton. These are the neocons. There's 225 neocons who endorsed her in the last week. These are people who are pro-war, pro-censorship, pro-surveillance. These are the people who gave us the Patriot Act, that gave us the Iraq War. They're not endorsing her because they've changed their mind about anything. They were exiled from both the Republican and Democratic Party. Now they're all back. And that's what I worry most about Vice President Harris as a president, that, we're closer now to nuclear conflict than we've been at any time since 1948. And we're in with these wars, and the Iraq War, which, we should have never gotten into, and she doesn't seem to understand at all. She has an inch of knowledge about it. And, unfortunately, he did not take the opportunity to force her to drill down on that and explain exactly what we're doing there and why we walked away from 2 peace treaties with Putin.
But he also,
let's ask that question.
But he also, Robert, I want to play the clip about Ukraine and then ask you a follow-up on this.
Let me pause for a second. I just wanted to add here as well. Kamala Harris is not strong on foreign policy. Every candidate has their weak spot, and that is her weak spot. So if I were debating Kamala Harris, I would really drive in on the foreign policy part, because I know that's not an area where she's strong. And I feel like that was a missed opportunity from Donald Trump there.
Take a listen.
I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers.
Now, we all want the war to end, but he dodged that question. And he was also asked, that you said, as he repeatedly says, I can solve this in 24 hours. He said last night, I'll get it done in between winning the election and the inauguration. I'll get this sorted. But I still remain completely mystified how Donald Trump will get this sorted without handing Putin a win in terms of allowing him to keep some or all of the territory that he's taken. Is there something I'm missing here? Because I don't see any other way this gets ended quickly.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I think it's more difficult than ever. I think it would have been very easy, in April of 2022, Putin signed a peace agreement and began withdrawing his troops, and he left Donbass and Lugansk as part of Ukraine. And President Biden forced Boris Johnson to go over there and make Zelensky tear up that agreement. And then since then, there's been 600,000 Ukrainian kids who have died and 300,000 Russians. Back then, it would have been very easy. The more the Russians commit to this, the more difficult it becomes. And right now, the Russians are devastating the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians have lost the war. The Russians are routing them on every front, and it becomes much more difficult.
Was that a duck quacking in the background?
Difficult to end the war in a way that's satisfactory, that leaves Ukraine as a functioning nation the farther we go into it. So I think it's more difficult now than ever, but Putin has, until very recently, he has persistently asked for negotiations, persistently. And in fact, Ukraine passed a law making it illegal to negotiate with him. What kind of, what are we into here that you can't negotiate with your opponent? This is, it's inexplicable. But I think the war can be ended. It has to be ended. It's either going to end with the total defeat of Ukraine, or we can save some part of Ukraine at this point. But the Russians are not going to win and lose this war. From the beginning, It was obvious that the Russians would not lose this war. It was a foolhardy errand by Antony Blinken and the people who are making these very, very bad decisions. The neocons in the White House who are making these decisions. It was a horrendous.
But let me ask you that. Okay.
let me pause here for a second. So here's the problem that you run into with that particular question, right? If they ask you, do you want Ukraine to win the war? Well, change the framing, because the reality is they're not going to win the war. They can't. So it's a trick question, because if you say, I want the war to end, which is what he said, then they're just kind of like, yeah, but do you want them to win? You know what I mean? So I would say to them, I think you should change the framing of your question. The reality is they can't win this war. They can't. It needs to end, and there needs to be a negotiation on both sides. And so when you ask that question that way, it's tricky, because how do you respond to it without sounding like a jackass to people who don't understand the nuance of this conflict? They're sitting at home and they're like, oh, they don't want Ukraine to win. Oh my God. Next thing you know, people are calling you Putin puppets. So the way that they frame the question, that actually matters. That's important. If you're one of the people that wants the war to end and you just want there to be negotiations because, again, you know Ukraine can't win, Kamala knows Ukraine can't win either. But she's willing to go along with it. That's why she got the endorsement from Dick Cheney. Look her up on Open Secrets now and you'll see all the money that she's taken from weapon contractors. That's why they endorsed her, because they know that she'll keep the wars going. So RFK is correct about that. You know, he's really good on Ukraine, terrible on Israel, terrible on Israel.
But look, you and I have debated Ukraine quite a lot, and I don't really agree with your take on this. But let me ask you the same question Trump dodged. Would you like Ukraine to win, just in principle?
What I want is peace in the region. So
well, everybody wants that. But the question is, really,
I don't know what victory means. I mean, by winning, what do you mean by that? Do you mean beating Russia, going into Kirks, which they're now in Russia? Do I think that that's a good idea? Do I think that that was a good strategy?
Well, I would think President Zelensky would categorize. Well, I would say winning would mean that the Russian forces withdraw from the Ukrainian territory that they've invaded. That's what winning would look like.
Do you mean including Crimea? I don't think that's ever going to happen.
Well, I doubt it would include Crimea.
I think
let's park Crimea to one side. But in terms of the invasion in 2022, the land that Putin has taken, I would say that Ukraine and Zelensky would see victory as the Russians having to pull out of that.
Well, you know, they had that deal in April of 2022. That was the deal. Donbass and Lugansk would remain part of Ukraine. And the only thing the Russians wanted was, number one, keep NATO out of Ukraine, which is a valid security demand by the Russians. We would not allow Russian coalitions into Mexico or Cuba. We've already shown that. The other thing they wanted is to make sure that Ukraine ended the civil war against the Russian-speaking and ethnic Russians in Donbass and Lugansk, that they could speak their own language. They would be autonomous region within Ukraine, the same way that Quebec is in Canada. Those were reasonable demands, and I think that was a victory for everybody. And unfortunately, we walked with the Biden administration, including Kamala Harris, who said she met 5 times with President Zelensky, walked away from that deal.
Yep. And that's the reality. I want to play the whole thing, but that is the reality of the situation, is that we could have already had a deal on the table. But again, like I said, the war machine wants that to continue, right? So I just want to make a comparison here, folks. And I hate to take you back, but we're going to go back. What we're going to do right now is go way back. We're going to go way back because I wanted you to see the difference. You saw Donald Trump debate in 2024. I want to take you back to a time when Donald Trump was debating Hillary Clinton in 2016. And I want to do this just to show you the difference. And you tell me if you think there's a difference or not. Listen to this.
One of the biggest challenges facing the next president, because clearly we're facing at this point 2 different kinds of adversaries. There are the independent hacking groups that do it mostly for commercial reasons, to try to steal information that they then can use to make money. But increasingly, we are seeing cyber attacks coming from states, organs of states. The most recent and troubling of these has been Russia. There's no doubt now that Russia has used cyber attacks against all kinds of organizations in our country, and I am deeply concerned about this. I know Donald's very praiseworthy of Vladimir Putin, but Putin is playing a really tough, long game here. And one of the things he's done is to let loose cyber attackers to hack into government files, to hack into personal files, hack into the Democratic National Committee. And we recently have learned that, that this is one of their preferred methods of trying to wreak havoc and collect information. We need to make it very clear, whether it's Russia, China, Iran, or anybody else, the United States has much greater capacity. And we are not going to sit idly by and permit state actors to go after our information, our private sector information or our public sector information. And we're going to have to make it clear that we don't want to use the kinds of tools that we have. We don't want to engage in a different kind of warfare, but we will defend the citizens of this country. And the Russians need to understand that. I think they've been treating it as almost a probing. How far would we go? How much would we do? And that's why I was so shocked when Donald publicly invited Putin to hack into Americans. That is just unacceptable. It's one of the reasons why 50 national security officials who served in Republican administration have said that Donald is unfit to be the commander in chief. It's comments like that that really worry people who understand the threats that we face.
Mr. Trump, you have 2 minutes on the same question.
So I just want to say something here before he responds, because I do want you guys to see the difference between how he debated in 2016 versus how he's debating now. But one of the things that I never really understood, at least for this particular debate performance, I don't know why Hillary Clinton chose the outfit that she chose to wear. It was very weird to me. It was a long blazer that went down like towards her knees and the suit pants that matched. And it was that bright red color, right? And so here's the thing. When you have the type of presence that Hillary Clinton has, where you tend to come across, well, I don't want to say come across, when you tend to have, RBF, you want to go with a color that's a little bit more softer and is reassuring to the American people, not a powerful color like red. When you have RBF, you want to go with a color like a blue, like a navy, or a softer, Carolina blue, or a green, something that's calming and soothing to people, because you already are like, you're a bit much. You're a bit much, right? So I didn't understand why she chose that outfit. I felt like it worked against her. I really do. You don't need a loud outfit when you have loud personality, right? So her voice kind of, presents itself, and she's not charismatic. And when you have resting bitch face, you really have to go with a color that makes you appear to be more invitable and engaging to people. So I never understood why she went with that color. And then the earrings and the hairstyle, it just gave me like 1984, like Dynasty vibes. Remember the show Dynasty? It just was not appealing, I think. And people do pay attention to those things. Listen to the way he responded here.
Who's behind it?
I do want to say that I was just endorsed, and more are coming next week. It'll be over 200 admirals, many of them are here, admirals and generals endorsed me to lead this country. That just happened, and many more are coming, and I'm very proud of it. In addition, I was just endorsed by ICE. They've never endorsed anybody before on immigration. I was just endorsed by ICE. I was just recently endorsed 16,500 Border Patrol agents. So when Secretary Clinton talks about this, I'll take the admirals and I'll take the generals any day over the political hacks that I see that have led our country so brilliantly over the last 10 years with their knowledge, okay? Because look at the mess that we're in. Look at the mess that we're in. As far as the cyber, I agree to parts of what Secretary Clinton said. We should be better than anybody else, and perhaps we're not. I don't think anybody knows it was Russia that broke into the DNC. She's saying Russia, 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 but maybe it was. It could be Russia, but it could also be China. It could also be lots of other people. It also could be somebody sitting on their bed that weighs 400 pounds, okay? You don't know who broke in to DNC. But what did we learn with DNC? We learned that Bernie Sanders was taken advantage of by your people, by Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Look what happened to her. But Bernie Sanders was taken advantage of. That's what we learned. Now, whether that was Russia, whether that was China, whether it was another country, we don't know. Because the truth is, under President Obama, we've lost control of things that we used to have control over. We came in with the internet, we came up with the internet, and I think Secretary Clinton and myself would agree very much. When you look at what ISIS is doing with the internet, they're beating us at our own game, ISIS. So we have to get very, very tough on cyber and cyber warfare. It is a huge problem. I have a son. He's 10 years old. He has computers. He is so good with these computers. It's unbelievable. The security aspect of cyber is very, very tough, and maybe it's hardly doable. But I will say we are not doing the job we should be doing. But that's true throughout our whole governmental society. We have so many things that we have to do better, Lester, and certainly cyber is one of them.
Secretary Clinton.
So does everybody see the difference? Notice how he performed then compared to how he's performing now. So I think there is a difference in the performance. I don't know. Maybe he might want to go back and watch these debate highlights. Maybe he doesn't want to relive that again. Anyhow, yeah. So RFK Jr. sounded an alarm there to Donald Trump about his performance, and RFK Jr. believes that Donald Trump is now going to lose independence because of his debate performance. Kamala Harris's team has requested another debate with Donald Trump. From what I saw recently, it appears he's not interested, I guess, unless it's on Fox News. So we don't know if there's going to be another debate. So like I said, what you saw, that might be all that you get. So that's that. He said a 400-pound. I forgot about that. Let's go to the comments here. Thank you for the super sticker, Brian Shelbourne. Spark Joy. RFK Jr. sounds like he's about to jump the Trump ship and swim over to Kamala. You know what? And I wouldn't put it past him because RFK Jr., Jason Call said it best. He said, this guy just looking for a damn job. Oh, man. Thank you, Kaim. Congrats on your fitness journey. Oh, thank you. Hustle for Palestine. Thank you. Robbie, polls. Kamala is doing bad with Muslim, Black, and young voters, worse than Biden, Hillary Clinton, and Obama. Shh, Robbie. We're going to get there. We're going to get there, Robbie. Thank you, Troy. Trump announced no tax on overtime. Thoughts? I actually think that's a good idea. I don't know if any of you have ever worked overtime before, but I have. And it's like you work overtime and then you're like, yeah, I got those overtime hours. So I'm going to get some extra pay up in this mug. And then you would see your check and you're like, damn. And it's almost like you didn't work the overtime because they still tax it, you know? Edward Shore, is Kennedy having buyer's remorse? There you go. Call me Trey. That's the sad part. Harris performed her content better, but her content itself was not better. It's a good point. Sandra, Sabby, I was reading Technocracy, Rising by Patrick Wood. Interesting subject. Check it out. I will do that. Jasmine, thank you. Trump looked like an old rambler next to her. He didn't attack her the way he ought to. Kamala will get vanity points because in comparison, she looks good and sounds like what passes for competent. That's a good point. And shout out to Kaim Aboyade Acosta for becoming a Sabby member. Whoop, whoop. Thank you, Kevin. Video, Noam Chomsky, The Crimes of U.S. Presidents. I use as solid rebuttal to RFK Jr. claim on the Kennedy-era Democrats as party of peace. Thank you for that. Thank you, Jasmine. And going back to vanity points, some Americans may vote for Harris simply because she looks good in comparison to Trump. It makes me think of the JFK-Nixon election. JFK got cool points on his looks. Thank you, Charlie. Do worms attract ducks? I guess RFK Jr.'s phone must have a duck ringtone. Thank you, Intelligent Observer. I served in the IC under Bush, Obama, Trump, and Biden. Things were quieter under Trump. Hate him or love him, Trump is a better option. Check me out. You served in the IC under Bush, Obama, Trump, and Biden? What? Thank you, Jay Tolbert. Sabby, speaking of dynasty vibes, made me bring my old profile picture back. Dynasty! Oh, man. I wonder if that show is streaming anywhere. Thank you, Marvin. Heard Kamala got 400-pounder and collard green toast. You guys we're never going to get over the greens. Thank you, Avenge, the ancestors. Queen Sabby, you make politics beautifully interesting. Oh, thank you. Let's go to the comments on Rockfin. Yeah. Thank you for the tip, Roger. I think what they should have negotiated for is through the help of both the U.S. and the state government is negotiate with the shareholders to hand over ownership of Boeing to the workers. Washington AG has the power of corporate dissolution, aka death penalty, to take away their corporate charter, allowing them, the workers, to buy the company as well. Ooh, interesting. Yep, I said in real time when Kamala didn't answer the first question was a lost opportunity. Yep. Thank you, Saga Papa, for the Rumble rant. The Donbass is not going back to Ukraine. I'll give one example, even though it's from pre-UN history, Texas. Oh, interesting point there. Interesting point. Yeah. Smash that like button, guys, and we're moving on. Now we're going to go to something a little bit scandalous. Not funny, but scandalous. So, let me pull this up here. Do you remember this group, Danity Kane? They were a group that was formed on a show called Making the Band. Diddy was the host of the show, but prior to him, there was another gentleman, Lee Perelman, who hosted that show. He was the guy that founded the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and all these other boy bands and took a lot of people's money and stuff. And somehow that show was handed over to Diddy, and it was Diddy's Making the Band. Eventually, it got to the season where he was trying to form an all-girl group, and that girl group became Danity Kane. And these are the women that were chosen to be a part of the group. They actually had some pretty good songs. I thought they were pretty cool. Well, it appears that now one of the members of Danity Kane is now coming out against Diddy and is also accusing him of sexual assault. This is crazy. Let's get into this story. There are a number of women that have accused Diddy of sexual assault, but now this is someone that I think a lot of us are a little bit more familiar with. Some of the other women decided not to disclose their names. However, in this particular case, the woman that is coming forward here in the white dress, her name is Dawn, or she was known as Dawn as a part of the group Danity Kane. She is now speaking out. Let's get into this.
One of the most influential figures in American music, Sean Diddy Combs.
I just have to pause it there for a second. There we go.
Did a great job today, ladies.
Today, Richard is back in the spotlight. In a damning new lawsuit, she's accusing her former mentor of sexual battery, forced labor, and gender-motivated violence.
These are all allegations that have become shockingly familiar against Diddy in recent months as he has faced lawsuit after lawsuit from women and men who have accused him of all manner of bad behavior.
Richard also claims she witnessed him abusing his former girlfriend, Cassandra Ventura, better known as Cassie, on numerous occasions. Attorney Lisa Bloom is representing Richard.
Dawn had the choice to file the case as a Jane Doe, and she chose not to do that. After giving it a fair amount of thought, she wants accountability. She wants justice.
Now, there is something I do want to go ahead and add here, because this is something that I think Diddy's team could try to use against her. So everyone listen to this. One of the things that was revealed about that particular music group and some of Diddy's other musical acts as well is that Diddy wasn't paying these people. So Danity Kane, whether it was Danity Kane, Craig Mack, some of the other acts that he had on the Bad Boy label, Danity Kane said years later in other interviews that they were not being paid by Diddy. So I'm telling you this because this is something that his team could try to say, you're just saying these things against me because you want money. You want payment. Now, some of you wondering, how did he not pay him? Let me explain. apparently the show Making the Band, where they were creating this idea of a girl super group or whatever, and they also created a male group later on called Day 26. Apparently Diddy never really had any thoughts beyond Making the Band. And I mean, he really was not planning to make an album with them or anything, which was the whole purpose of the show. Form the group, let the group go off after, and make an album and tour the world like an artist does. But apparently, according to members of Danity Kane, they said that after they won and the show really took off, once that season was done, there was pressure from the viewers demanding, where's the album? Where's the album? So because of the pressure from the public, according to Danity Kane, that is why Diddy decided, okay, we need to try to put an album together. But according to the girls that were part of the group, they said that Diddy had no plans for them after that. He just wanted to continue the reality show. And they were like, no, we're supposed to make a record. We weren't auditioning just to be on TV. We really want to be a singing group. So because of the pressure from the public, he decided to go forward and help them create an album. And the albums they did 2 of them that I'm familiar with. They were actually really good, pretty decent. And they were also going on tour. But according to the members of the group, they said they had a hit album, they were touring, and they said that Diddy was not paying them. This isn't the first of this to happen. You know, one of the things I think was an issue was that they didn't really read the contract really well. And that happens oftentimes in the music business, particularly with people that are very young and they just want to sign a deal. It happened to New Edition, right? So it's happened to other artists as well. But I'm telling you that because if I'm looking at it from the other perspective, his lawyers could say, well, wait a minute, isn't this the girl from the group that claimed that you didn't pay them what they were supposed to get paid? And they can try to use that against her and say, you're just trying to get money. Let's continue.
An attorney for Combs tells Nightline, quote, in an attempt to rewrite history, Don Richard has now manufactured a series of false claims, all in the hopes of trying to get a payday. Adding, quote, it's unfortunate that Miss Richard has cast their 20-year friendship aside to try and get money from him.
See?
But Mr. Combs is confidently standing on truth and looks forward to proving that in court. Richard is just the latest person to come forward with disturbing allegations against the once celebrated hip-hop mogul.
Diddy has been under criminal investigation for months by federal prosecutors here in New York. And if there are criminal charges, many of them may look a lot like what some of these individuals have been describing.
With this newest lawsuit, this would probably only expedite or increase the amount of allegations and potential witnesses who could testify against Sean Combs.
Last November, a stunning lawsuit by Cassie claimed that she was the victim of a pattern of abuse, violence, and sex trafficking by Combs. At the time, Combs denied all wrongdoing and said that settling was not an admission of guilt.
And then the video came out. The video came out and we all saw that obviously Diddy was lying, which I predicted anyway. I'm just going to go forward a little bit because I know that can be disturbing for some people. But I'll go to the apology video. Yeah.
There's the point where she just stays on the ground.
It's so difficult to reflect on.
Combs, now 54, acknowledges assault of Cassie in a message posted on Instagram days after the video surfaced.
I was up. I mean, I hit rock bottom. But I make no excuses. My behavior on that video is inexcusable. I take full responsibility for my actions in that video.
Since Cassie's lawsuit, at least 8 others have followed. Combs has denied any wrongdoing. Don Richard first met Combs while filming the MTV reality show.
We just got to come out of that for just a second because of the music and the copyright. So give it just a second. So yeah, they were filming Making the Band. That's how this group was formed. I feel like you find out a lot about these groups later on after the fact. Let me bring it back in.
Was subjected to verbal abuse and deprived of basic needs such as adequate food and sleep. She claims they were sometimes forced to work up to 48 hours with no breaks. Richard also alleges that during the filming of Making the Band, she saw Kim Porter, Combs' ex-partner and mother of 3 of his children, leaving his recording studio in tears with visible facial injuries, including a lacerated lip.
Let's pause here and let's just touch on Kim Porter for just a second. You know, Kim Porter, apparently they said that she died from pneumonia. Some people dispute that. Some people think that it was him. And I've heard that from multiple people. They said she was in great health. How could this have just happened out of nowhere? I don't know. But it's apparent from hearing from a number of people that Diddy was an abusive person. So when I hear a new accusation, I'm not like, oh my God, I can't believe. No, because I saw the video footage of what he did to Cassie, right?
It's at that point, according to the lawsuit, that Richard says that she knew that Sean Combs was capable of assault and some of the most heinous acts towards the women.
So many people are trying to break into the music industry. No matter how they're treated on those shows, it's very hard for them to leave because this is their lucky break. This is their dream.
Richard went on to work with Combs in another group called Diddy Dirty Money.
Like Puff says, it feels good to work with a team. I'm better with a team.
According to her lawsuit, the harassment didn't stop. Richard says Combs groped her multiple times.
She claims that while in the dressing room, he would be there groping her buttocks under the auspice of, this is where I want her underwear to be showing. This is where I want her pants to be cut. This is where I want her top to be fitted.
It was around this time, the lawsuit says, that Richard was witness to multiple acts of violence against Combs' then-girlfriend, Cassie. In one incident, she alleges that in front of dinner guests, Combs forcefully punched Cassie in the stomach, causing her to double over in visible pain, crying.
Don Richard.
You want to know who was apparently present at that? Usher.
Describes this one instance where Cassie is apparently making breakfast in the kitchen, and Diddy comes downstairs. She describes him as drug-addled, apparently high, and just starts yelling at Cassie. Diddy picks up the frying pan full of eggs and whatever and hurls it at her, causing Cassie to duck into a fetal position. And she said this is what made her, Don Richard, to be so afraid of him and what he was capable of.
There was also a financial toll. Richard claims she's owed upwards of $3 million for her work as an artist.
In the music industry, sexual harassment and sexual abuse of women is tolerated. A lot of very high-level people are complicit. Women suffer. Women are overly sexualized. They're discarded like trash after they complain. And a reckoning is long overdue.
It's very difficult for you to get a job with another record label, for you to get signed by another record label, or for another music producer to be willing to work with you, because what those guys will do, particularly those music producers, they will run your name like through the industry and tell people not to work with you. They'll blackball you. This has happened to a number of people. It doesn't just happen in the music industry, it also happens in Hollywood as well, whereas they'll tell people that you're difficult to work with because you refuse sexual advances from them or you complained about it. And the next thing you know, you're just completely out of that business altogether, right?
It takes a lot of people coming forward until somebody is believed against a very powerful person in the music industry.
Yes. All right. So Diddy again. And then this was the part here about the raid. Remember when his house was raided?
Feds earlier in the spring.
And his name is now sullied by allegations that he denies, that he insists he will fight, but he is also facing a criminal investigation. The biggest threat that he faces is the prospect of criminal charges. Diddy, who once seemed untouchable in the world of entertainment, could in theory put him into prison.
Yeah, I want to answer this question too from Lai C. Says, why did Cassie stay? The money, why would she stay? He's famous. She could easily leave and he'll have no recourse, then sue him for abuse like she did eventually. I think part of the problem is like, Diddy tended to prey on, these were younger women. This girl was really young. I thought Cassie was really young at the time. And a lot of times, like, you don't know, like, what home they're coming from. Maybe their parents have never had this conversation with them. You never know. But they tend to try to prey on younger girls who are just afraid. They're afraid to leave, right? The other thing is the money issue. As we've all been talking about, and they've talked about in here, it was very clear to me that Diddy owed some people some money. You know, he owed some of these artists some money because he wasn't paying them. I would assume the case was probably similar with Cassie as well, where he probably didn't pay her what she was supposed to be paid. And so because of that, it's like, where are you going to go? What are you going to do? We don't know what her home situation was like with her parents. We don't know if she could go back to her parents' house. You never know. And oftentimes, like, they'll find these girls that particularly may not have the best home life or home environment. Remember, they said that R. Kelly was picking up girls from the high school, right? So we don't know. I think that is a question for Cassie, to be honest. But from what I saw in that video, it looked like she was just very afraid of him. But yes, so former member of Danity Kane, Dawn, is now accusing Diddy of sexual assault as well. So does not look good for the did. Let's go to some of the comments here. All right. Thank you for the super chat. Cool Daddy Smooth. Kamala did an interview today for ABC6 Philly. Oh, cool. I'll have to check it out. I probably can't show it on here if it's ABC6, just because that's local news, and local news has copyright, which sucks, a fat one. Gus says, Diddy is the Jeffrey Epstein of the entertainment industry. That's what I've been wondering. Bill Bobby, I just watched some of those a few months ago. You can tell how horrible Diddy is. Yeah, I want to remind everybody, the first season of Making the Band with Diddy, remember, he made them walk to Brooklyn from Manhattan to get him a cheesecake. And then by the time they got back on foot, he was gone. So if we want to talk about the abusive behavior, he showed this a couple of times on Making the Band. Thank you, Cooper. Your RBF tips for Hillary would make a great short. The resting bitch face. Some people have resting bitch face, you know, they can't help it, but you know. Rondo, Dylan spit hot. Oh yeah, Dylon. My name's Dylon. I spit hot fire. Top 5 MCs of all time. He was one of the Making of the Band members. Oh, Dylon. Thank you, Will. Will says, great show. Thank you. Dylon. Oh man, you're taking me back. Okay, we are moving forward to the next story here. So this one's pretty interesting here, ladies and gentlemen. Jake Tapper is actually given some criticism for Kamala Harris's debate speech or debate performance himself. I was actually surprised by this. Not only does he give that criticism, but he also brings in Bernie Sanders to pretty much back him up on his criticism, which I thought was kind of strange. Before I get to that clip, though, there's another one here I want to show you. Another warning to Kamala Harris. So it's interesting, right? Like, we had RFK giving a warning to Donald Trump, and now we have commentators giving warnings to Kamala Harris. Let's dive into this clip here.
She is the worst polling Democrat against Donald Trump in history on national polls. No one is performing worse than her. No one's performing worse than her among blacks, among Hispanics, the worst performing Democrat in modern history among those demographics, worst performing polling wise among Jews. She is losing key factions of the Democratic base. Muslim voters, she's at under 50, she's at 52% in the latest CAIR poll among black Muslims. She is not doing well. She is the worst polling Democrat against Donald Trump in history on national polls. No one is performing worse than her. No one's performing worse than her among blacks, among Hispanics, the worst performing Democrat in modern history among those demographics, worst performing polling wise among Jews. She is losing key factions of the Democratic base. Muslim voters, she's at under 50, she's at 52% in the latest CAIR poll among black Muslims.
So this is a problem for Kamala Harris. It is a reality. And I think all the hype around her, the media has not been addressing this. So this guy here, he is JD Vance's Senate campaign, or former JD Vance Senate campaign staffer. So he's no longer working with JD Vance anymore. But he's talking about the demographics that Kamala Harris is struggling with when you compare her to Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton. Now, again, Hillary Clinton still lost, but when you look at the numbers, Hillary Clinton was still performing better with the Black population than Kamala Harris, and so was Joe Biden. So that is a cause for concern for Kamala Harris's, I would hope to say her team, because they're seeing these numbers just like you see these numbers, okay? So there's that. She's also not polling as well with Latino voters as Biden and Hillary Clinton did this same time as well. And then we have to bring in Muslim voters now, right? Because obviously things have definitely flipped since October 7th. And a large part of the Muslim population Biden was able to capture. And now things have changed because this administration is funding and aiding the genocide. Now, you're going to see all of these. If you go onto Twitter right now, you will see a lot of Kamala's doing this. Kamala's doing that, positive things about her campaign. And look at the crowd of people that showed up to see her. You're going to see all of that. But they're not talking about this. And they're also not talking about something I'm going to show you when we get to the Jill Stein Breakfast Club story, these internal numbers that I just saw. So this is why I say the national poll that they're showing you and the swing state polls that they're showing you right now, you also have to factor in key demographic groups that the Democratic Party needs to win. So always take that with a grain of salt, right? And now it just goes to Jake Tapper, because even Jake Tapper, he's having criticism about Kamala Harris's debate performance. So I think they're trying to send a message to Kamala for her not to get too comfortable, because the numbers still aren't turning out the way that they should if we compare her campaign to Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton at this same time when they were running. Listen to this.
Sanders from Vermont. Senator, thanks so much for joining us. The first question Vice President Harris was asked in the debate last night was if she believed Americans are better off now than they were 4 years ago. Listen to part of her answer.
Well, I will tell you.
We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to startup small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy.
How satisfied were you with that response, Senator?
Well, I think it's a step forward. I think more has got to be done. Small business should be the backbone of the American economy. Many of them are hurting right now, and a tax break would be a real help. But I think we've got to do more. She also mentioned the need to address the housing crisis in America, which I'll tell you, Jake, is severe in Vermont and all over this country. People can't afford housing. 3 million new housing units is what she wants. That is the right thing to do. I think she has talked about passing the PRO Act, which makes it easier for workers to join unions, earn better wages and benefits. That is very, very important. But I think there's a number of other things that I would hope that she speaks about. And that is to understand that in America today, some 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. You got half of elderly people living on $30,000 a year or less. What do we have to do? In my view, and I hope she speaks to these things, very popular ideas, you have to expand Social Security benefits by lifting the cap on taxable income. Widely popular. Strong majority Republicans, Democrats support it. We can raise benefits for Social Security beneficiaries by $2,400 a year. Medicare expansion all over the country. Elderly people can't afford dental, hearing, vision. You expand that, we can get great support, and it's good policy. We have got to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. I would say.
Let me pause. Notice how Bernie Sanders is now saying expand medical, right? No more Medicare for all. It's now just expand. So just pay close attention to that, right? This is Bernie Sanders and Jake Tapper sending a message to Kamala Harris that the platform that she has is not aggressive enough to determine that she's going to be able to have an outright, blowout win. Because right now she can't say that. It's still very close. And considering everything that happened during Donald Trump's presidency that really turned off even some Republicans, it shouldn't be this close. You see what I mean? So this is Bernie Sanders and Jake Tapper trying to tell her, listen, you need to add some other things or change some things here. He mentioned minimum wage. She has that on her platform to increase it, but she never put a dollar amount. And that to me was very suspect. I told you guys about that. Really, after everything that's been said about $15, which is just the minimum baseline, it should be more than that based on inflation. You couldn't even put 15. So just again, like I said, I think Kamala Harris is an empty suit. I don't think she really knows what she's doing. I think that she is an empty suit that is going to be the person that's in front of you. But I think the decisions will be made by the Obamas and the Clintons. I think that's how it's going to be, because I don't think that Kamala's ready for this. She wasn't prepared to really do the border job. And we see how that turned out, right? So listen to this.
We have got to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. I would say $17 an hour.
So you notice how he had to see, notice how the numbers change. Notice how it's no longer 15. Now it's 17. So this is Bernie trying to give her, why does he have to tell you that?
It's not acceptable. So many of our people working for $12-14 an hour. I think what we have also got to do is recognize that we have massive income and wealth inequality. And yes, billionaires are going to have to start paying their fair share of taxes. I think some of those issues are what she has got to start talking about. She's talking about some of them. Child tax credit, very important, lowering child poverty. But she's got to do more if we're going to win over Trump's supporters who know that he's a liar, know that he has no agenda. But you got to give them something to say, you know what, life will be better under the vice president.
So it was interesting in both 2016 when you ran for president and 2020 when you ran for president. Donald Trump ran those years as well. There was an interesting overlap where there were people who supported you, and then when you did not get the nomination, they were more attracted by Donald Trump's message. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but in an election this close, any vote, especially in battleground states, is significant. Do you think that there's anything more that she needs to do beyond those policy issues you talked about, which are obviously important to your voters? Is there something stylistically that she needs to do? Is there something message-wise that she needs to do that she isn't doing?
See, they're trying to coach her. This is their way of trying to coach her. Now, she may not watch this segment with Jake Tapper, but I'm pretty sure someone that's a part of her campaign team, they're probably watching all of the press that's coming out about Kamala Harris to give this information back to her, right? But they're trying to coach her and tell her, like, listen, you need to do these things. Otherwise, you don't have it in the bag.
Yeah, Jake, I think here's the message, and it's a message that I know it's difficult for many politicians to bring forth, and that is the recognition that increasingly the United States is moving toward an oligarchic form of society. The economy is very clear what's going on right now. The billionaire class and the 1% have never, ever had it so good, period. End of discussion. More income and wealth inequality than any time in American history. Tens of millions of people, working people, struggling to put food on the table. That is the reality. It's not Kamala Harris's fault. It's not Joe Biden's fault, not Donald Trump's fault. It's been that way for a long time, getting worse. But you know what? You got to recognize that. And then what you got to say is, look, working people of America, I am on your side. And I am prepared to take on the billionaire class, including these wealthy campaign contributors who right now are dominating the political process. In other words, among other things, we got to get rid of the Citizens United doctrine, which allows billionaires to buy elections. So in other words, I think you got a working class that is hurting, that I think is turning to Trump only because they don't see real alternatives.
Let me pause. She can't say that. She can't say that we got to go against the billionaires because they're on her side. She's taking money from billionaires. She's publicly announced this. She told you during the debate that her and Goldman Sachs are like this. They're on her side. So she can't do that, Bernie. You were able to do that because you ran a grassroots campaign. She's not running a grassroots campaign. So those billionaire donors that she got, the Wall Street people who are backing her, they are going to turn against her the moment she starts saying we have to go after the billionaires. So you see, this is how I say, look, Bernie wants her to say things that are not true. And he thinks that if she says some of the things that he said, then she'll be able to create the same amount of excitement that Bernie had around his campaigns. And that's just not the case, bruh. Too much has happened. When you were running for president, we didn't have the war with Russia and Ukraine. When you were running for president both times, we didn't have, October 7th. Yes, Israel was still attacking Palestinian people, but it has increased significantly since October 7th, including the expansions in the West Bank. We didn't have all this. And that's the difference. So just getting up on a stage and saying, we got to go after the billion, that's not enough, fam. That's not enough. The level's up here now. Okay. So like when you ran, we were like right here, you're saying some things. We're like, yeah, that's cool. We need Medicare for all, etc. But now the stakes are higher. The bar is higher. So the typical Bernie campaign, that's not enough anymore. The economy is worse. But he just wants her to say these things because he thinks, well, you got to get the Trump people to think that you're going to do something for them and then not do those things because she's not going to do those things. All vibes.
And I think if she gives them an economic alternative that says, I am going to stand for you, I'm going to take on these greedy people who want it all, I think she could turn some Trump people around and win this election, maybe win it big.
No, but she can't. She can't turn on those. She can't turn on those corporations. She can't turn on those donors. She can't turn on those investors because they're funding her. That's the difference.
Take a listen to something we heard. Pardon me. Take a listen to something we heard from an undecided voter in Erie, Pennsylvania, in a focus group we did there last night after that voter watched the debate.
When Trump was in office, the economy was higher, inflation was lower, things were better overall. Now with Kamala's administration, things haven't been so fantastic. And she's saying she can fix the problems that her administration has caused, but I just don't know if I can afford to take that risk.
The Pennsylvania, obviously a must win battleground state this year. What would you say to that voter?
So notice how the rhetoric is changing around the states that they need to win. Remember before they were saying that they have to win Michigan. Now they're saying they must win Pennsylvania. What does that tell you guys? That tells you that they're not guaranteed. They're not banking on Michigan. That tells you that they're willing to say, okay, maybe we won't get Michigan. But they weren't saying that before, that they must get Pennsylvania. Now they're saying they must get it.
Help me out. I didn't quite clearly hear it. The sound is not so great here.
Okay, no problem. So the voter said when Trump was in office, the economy was higher, inflation was lower, things were better overall. And under the Biden-Harris administration, things haven't been so fantastic. Not sure that that Harris can fix the problems that her administration caused, this voter said.
Well, obviously, in my view, given the fact that Biden and Harris came in the midst of this terrible pandemic, when, as you recall, unemployment was soaring, small businesses were going out of business, workers were not going to work, we had a major public health crisis. I think that Biden and Harris did an excellent job, by the way, in getting our economy back on track in a way that economists did not even think possible. So I think they did a good job. But her point is well taken in the sense that the economy today is an economy where working class people are struggling. That is absolutely true. And what we have got to do is not just demonize undocumented people, which is Trump's mantra, but have the guts to talk about the greed of the people on top. People who fight workers when they try to organize unions. People prepared to shut down factories in this country and move them to Mexico or China. People who want massive tax breaks want to cut Social Security and Medicare. Do we have a political system today where members of Congress are prepared to stand up to these big money interests? And I think if we do that, she will understand that it's not Trump who's going to deliver for her or Kamala Harris.
I'm sorry, I have to say something for just a second. Just because you say that we have this corruption at the top, that doesn't help people economically right now. Like Bernie, you've been saying that for years. So saying it and fixing the problem are two different things, right? I'm gonna tell you guys, I was at the store earlier today and I'm like, I get to the register and I'm like, seriously? Like when I hear the price, I'm like, what? Like, are we serious? I have three things. I have three items. Why am I paying $40? So this whole idea of just talk about the greed at the top. No, you can't just talk about the greed. If you don't have a plan to make it so that the corporate money has to be removed from electoral politics, otherwise this is never going to change. Because the politicians, most of the time, don't pass legislation unless it has some type of corporate interest attached to it. So everybody understand that. So there's that problem. Two, you cannot continue to string the American people along all these years by just talking about the corruption. You are in office. You got to fix it. And I don't want to hear that you can't fix it because you guys got billions for Ukraine. You have billions for Israel. When it comes to us, we're the ones that you want to shortchange. We're the ones that you say we can't make housing affordable. We're the ones that get screwed over. So that's not enough. That's not enough. And I'm going to tell you another damn thing. When you listen to this group of women here on this panel, group of Black women talking about Kamala Harris, and they're going to let you know that it's not enough for them either. And this whole, hey, she's coconut vibes, brat summer theme, which is not as trendy anymore as it used to be, that honeymoon period. That's not enough for them. It's not enough to see pictures of Kamala Harris and some coconuts and all this jazz. It's not enough to have this endorsement from Taylor Swift and people like, well, Taylor endorsed her. Yay. That doesn't put food on people's table. It's not enough anymore. And you're going to hear it from other Black women who are also going to let you know that they see that Kamala Harris is trying to pander to the Black community. Listen to this.
Race baiting and fear mongering was a big part of her tactic tonight.
Part of Kamala's tactic?
Yes, Kamala's tactic.
Okay. What in particular would you remember about that?
Especially when she brought up the Central Park 5. I think that's a hot button issue, especially for a lot of African Americans, but she leaves out a lot of specifics to that. Like the lead prosecutor was a Democrat at the time. Back then, Donald Trump was also a Democrat. He wasn't always a Republican. And he was praised heavily in a good way for taking out that ad in the paper because a lot of people did think that they were guilty. So a lot of people that were against Trump now were once a big fan of his, and I think he was gaslit during the entire debate, and that was probably why he was so defensive. Yes. And even when he brought up the topic of race, he brought that up because she's pandering. She's using being Black as a trope to get the Black vote. I'm sorry. But instead of her leaning into it, I would have liked to see her lean into the fact that, yes, I am a Black woman, and this is my plan for Black America, but she clearly doesn't have a plan because she's essentially not Black. But she used that as a moment to paint him as a racist.
Right. So I feel like this too. If you're going to run on, hey, I'm a Black woman, could be the first Black woman president or whatever and all that kind of jazz, but you don't have a Black agenda? How are you going to run on that and you don't have a Black agenda? It don't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me at all. We can go to part 2 when you're ready, Eric. So people are not, wait till we get to these polls. Yeah, Eric, we can go to part 2 of Type V and C. I can't wait till you guys see these numbers because these are the internal polls that they don't want you to see, but you're going to see it tonight. You're going to see it tonight. You can screenshot or clip this because you need to hear it, boo. All right, let's go to some of the comments first. And we're going to reveal all that in this Jill Stein story. because you notice they're coming really heavily after Jill Stein, right? And I'm going to show you why. Don't forget to answer the poll, too. There's a poll pinned at the top of the chat. Based. Thank you, Jasmine. Those numbers of Black, Hispanic, and Arab falling from her give me hope. Neither of us owe genocidal hypocrites our vote. I agree with you there. Jay, the internal number are horrendous. Even Michigan officials are warning. Oh, look at the little cat. Cute. Humanist, I'm Cuban, voting for Jill since 2016. Phenomenal mysticism. The presidential debate was a mess. I hear you. Thank you, Chris. Angela must have saw that CNN segment before the interview. LOL. Probably. Thank you, Troy. What's your plan, Kamala? It was a sunny day. Oh my God. Thank you, baby Ethernet. CNN is coaching Kamala. RIP to her campaign. I'm going to tell you, wait till we get to these numbers. Thank you, Mullian Flower. RFK Jr. says it's the craziest election ever. True. With RFK Jr. being a main clown, adult kindergartner, switching from his to the blues to the reds. Someone's going to make a made-for-TV movie about this. Remember those made-for-TV movies? Thank you, baby Ethernet. Her platform is already being revised 1 week in. Interesting. Thank you for this as well. Democracy on Training Wheels, Fisher Price edition. You guys got all the jokes tonight. Thanks, Chris. Why can't Bernie disappear faster than his integrity? Ooh. Thank you, N. Willis. So Bernie wants to help Kamala commit genocide. Got it. Thanks, House. Philly has a large Black Muslim population that's not happy with Gaza. Ooh. Thank you, Samad Serling. Jaja Sabby, they're not going to pay that money back. They're extracting all resources and this economy going to blank. Thanks, Mullian. The Greens only party, RFK Jr. clown, didn't join in 2024. Oh, man. Thanks, baby Ethernet. Kamala tried to pull an Obama and it backfired. That's what it feels like. Thank you, Bryce. Salute, Sabs. What's up, Bryce? Let's get the comment on Rockfin. Let's keep it going. Yeah. Based. All right. Thank you, Roger. Sabrina, I don't know if Diddy's saying, hey, they're just trying to get money from me because I didn't pay them for the work I had them do is valid argument. Like, yes, mofo, we're coming after you for money that is owed for free work. That sounds like us and what we're fighting for. Thank you for that. And thank you for this one here. Cam is weak with American Muslims because, well, you know, Cam is weak with most blacks because of the migrant crisis coming to our front door. Latino, I guess, maybe abortion and the whole LGBTQ thing, but they don't agree with because they are heavily Catholic, ? Bernie, yes, we need to do that stuff, but you weren't willing to make it happen yourself. Now, if you weren't willing to do it, what makes you think she is? I mean, these are all really good points. Thank you, Saka Papa. Sabby, did you know that Angela Rye calls Jake Tapper the Uber Hasbra pusher along with Dana Bash, my friend? Oh, well, we're going to get into Angela. Don't worry. We're about to get into Angela. Don't worry. So if you have not seen it, I think it is important for you to see. Jill Stein and Butch Ware had an interview at the Breakfast Club. And unlike its other interviews that they've had with presidential candidates, they decided to go extra hard at Jill Stein and Butch Ware. It was downright, offensive and unprofessional from what I saw. And I'm not just saying that because I support Jill Stein. I'm saying that because I have watched them interview other presidential candidates. They didn't treat Nikki Haley like that. They were nicer to Nikki Haley than they were to Jill Stein. So take that in and do with that whatever you want. So Jill Stein and Butch Ware went on to the Breakfast Club, and they really had to school Charlemagne the God and Angela Rye because I don't think they were ready for this. I don't think they were ready for people to come on there and really tell them what it means to organize and what it means to be able to build community off of grassroots base and not rely on big money, to be able to talk about what Blackness actually means and not just say, I'm a Black female and I'm running for president. You see, I don't think they were ready for all of this. And I don't think they knew too much about Butch Ware, to be honest, because he was really dropping some knowledge. I'm going to start with one of the clips that he has here. Trip Fontaine said, this almost made me cry because this is the rage I feel right now. Straight up, the good majority of Negroes I see going up for this election are genuinely lost. To allow Blackness to be weaponized again is crazy. Let me show you what he's talking about here, because Butch really took it home.
I am personally offended by the way that Blackness is being weaponized in this electoral cycle in order to justify white supremacist genocide in Gaza.
Expound.
Please. Malcolm said of Zionism, of the Zionist state, the Israeli state, he said that this is a white Jewish population, the Ashkenazi population, being given power by white imperialists to remove brown Arabs from their land. He says, so therefore Zionism is white supremacy. In 1979, Open Letter to the Born Again, James Baldwin said the same thing. He said the state of Israel was not created for the salvation of the Jews. It was created for the salvation of Western interests. When you go through Kwame Ture, Malcolm X, James Baldwin, Toni Morrison, Angela Davis, Assata Shakur, these are all people that cited the Palestinian resistance movement, not even to bring in the Africans, right? Not to mention Nelson Mandela, not to mention Thomas Sankara, who talked about Zionism as being the face of imperialism in the Middle East, right? This is what the Black radical tradition taught me. And the Black radical tradition taught me that if we weaponize our Blackness in favor of white supremacy, then we become apostates from Blackness itself, because Blackness is not a race. It is an oppositional ideology to white supremacy. I'm a historian of Africa by training. Never before in human history had people speaking hundreds of different languages made themselves into one people, developed a common culture so that you and I can relate to one another. You and I can relate to one another on the basis of a shared culture. And we got our Latin and Caribbean brothers and sisters, you know, especially Puerto Ricans and Dominicans, but also, you know, more broadly, right? That share in that culture. That is a miracle. It's never happened before in human history, because what happened is that an oppositional identity to white supremacy came into being, and that is us. And when I see that identity now being weaponized to justify the most heinous genocide in our time, like Harriet Tubman is rolling over in her grave right now. Sojourner Truth is rolling over in her grave right now. Bell Hooks is rolling over in her grave right now. Who did I miss? Do you know what I'm saying? The idea that we would weaponize something as sacred as Black womanhood and then utilize this to justify blowing up Palestinian kids.
I think he told them, he had to check them because they wanted to use, if you haven't seen the full interview, when you get a chance, please watch it. They wanted to use Kamala Harris's race and identity as a reason as to why you should not criticize her, or they shouldn't criticize her. The criticism that they had of Kamala Harris were very much valid. And that's not enough for people nowadays. We went through that with Barack Obama, and they wanted to use that. That's good enough. That's good enough. The fact that, well, she's Black woman, which we can argue the Black thing. So you can't, don't you dare put some respect on her. Put some respect on her. Right? So that was one from Butch trying to school them, because it's true. The excuses that they were trying to make for Kamala Harris, every time that Butch and Jill brought up the genocide, what's happening in Gaza, they kept trying to interrupt. Well, don't you think Kamala is going to try to do something for those people and da-da-da? You got to understand, these people are DNC shills. And Charlemagne, don't let me get started on you, because Charlemagne used to work on the radio when I lived in Columbia, South Carolina, when I went to the University of South Carolina. Charlemagne came from local radio. Charlemagne knows better. Don't let these people fool you. It's amazing how people change once they come up. And I've seen some change. So They wanted to use that to basically push back and say, oh no, well, why don't you let her get in here and give her a chance and see what she will do? You know, this woman said, blank to your face, told you she will not stop Israel from being able to defend itself, and she will not withhold weapons from Israel. Now, all of a sudden, everybody in the room wanted to play dumb. So let's take it to another point. This part right here. So shout out to DAP ADOS tribe. He was really he was knocking him out the park today. This part of the Jill Stein interview on the Breakfast Club definitely caught my attention. Now, I want to show you guys this part right here. One of the things they tried to do is they tried to bring up the Kremlin talking points. Angela Rye tried to say, well, you were sitting at a table with Vladimir Putin. These things have been debunked. Like, Jill has explained this over and over and over again. So when they couldn't get back at Butch and Jill for the things that you just heard him say, when they couldn't really respond to that, then they tried to go with the Russiagate talking points. That's how sad and low and pathetic that Angela and Charlemagne were willing to stoop. And like I said, I've never seen them speak to anybody else that was a presidential candidate on that show. The way that they spoke to Jill and Butch, they came out swinging. Very angry, tense, and it was just an awkward, hostile environment. But Butch and Jill remained calm throughout it all. Watch this with the Kremlin stuff. Watch.
The question that was raised there was, did Russian social media have an impact? And was I, a beneficiary of that? And the Senate...
But they said you repeatedly parroted Kremlin views and posted a campaign video
you know what they
from
consider
Moscow's
a
Red
Kremlin
Square.
view? They consider reparations a Kremlin view.
Oh.
They consider the civil rights movement actually a Kremlin view. They consider racial disparities a Kremlin view. So these are Department of Defense talking points. And these.
Let's go back, because I want you to see the look on Angela's face. This is all going to be important. Pay attention to this conversation here about what is considered to be a Kremlin view.
The question that was raised there was, did Russian social media have an impact? And was I, a beneficiary of that? And the Senate...
But they said you repeatedly parroted Kremlin views and posted a campaign video from
you know what they consider a
Moscow's Red
Kremlin
Square.
view?
Look at the look on her face. That was her whole mood. During the interview, that was her whole mood. And this comment that Jill's about to make here applies actually towards Angela. I'll show you in just a second.
Consider reparations a Kremlin view.
Oh.
They consider
They do.
the civil rights movement actually a Kremlin view. They consider racial disparities a Kremlin view. So these are Department of Defense talking points, and these are unfortunately the DNC talking points as well, which repeatedly tries to smear me as a Russian agent,
They called
even though
you a
it has
useful
been
idiot.
Yes, and this has been very specifically
Let's just be blunt about that.
found lacking. And the report, get this, the report that was initially used to supposedly show that Russians had a social media campaign supporting me, that was written by a cybersecurity firm called the New Knowledge Corporation. New Knowledge had to disband shortly after publishing that because they were exposed for conducting an interference campaign themselves in the 2017 Senate election in Alabama. And how did they do that? They pretended to be a Russian influence campaign on social media. So they did exactly what they have accused the Russians of doing. They actually did, and put it under the false guise of being a Russian interference campaign.
So you see, that's what they tried to use against them next. Oh, you sat at the table and with Vladimir Putin and da-da-da. Now, here's what's interesting about what Jill said there about the Kremlin talking points. It's time to dive into Angela Rye. I didn't know this. So again, shout out to DAP, ADOS Tribe, and Yvette Carnell and all of you that tagged me because I didn't know. Did you guys know how ironic it was that Angela Rye was a part of the Jill Stein Breakfast Club interview? Look at this, what he shared here. Black critics of Kamala Harris and Cory Booker push back against claims that they're Russian bots. Angela Rye and Joy Reid have speculated that American descendants of slaves using the hashtag ADOS to critique Harris and Booker are Russian bots. That was February 13th, 2019. She been doing this, fam. That's her right there. She been doing this, fam. What? She been doing this, fam. She was doing this in 2019. So when Jill said, you know what else is a Kremlin talking point? Reparations. Oh, she ain't like that. Did not like it. And so I'll show you where she was saying that. I said, no wonder Angela Rye folded her arms when Jill Stein mentioned reparations. This woman accused ADOS of being Russian bots. Oh, honey, the tea is hot with this one. And it is. I told you we were going to have some fun tonight. The tea is hot. So shout out to Yvette Carnell because she shared this video with me. Don't believe me? Listen to her say it yourself.
You just clearly don't pay attention, that's fine. But the challenge I have now is if you follow the narrative, it is very much about we can only talk about reparations and issues specific to Black Americans who are not immigrants because when other people come here, they're not looking out for our best interests. Number one, that's an overgeneralization. Number two, it's dangerous. I believe that it was paid for by Russia. And I'm not saying that everyone who uses that hashtag now is a Russian bot, but I believe it originated from Russian bots in the same way that some of the stuff around the crime bill happened in 2016. There were some lower speeches clearly.
So this was Angela Rye speaking to a room of people, telling people that ADOS, this was all, they were being paid by Russia and that they were Russian bots. This is Angela Rye saying that. And the same woman just happens to be sitting in the room to interview Jill Stein and wants to bring up, oh, you sat at the table across from Vladimir Putin. First, she lied and said you sat right next to him. She didn't sit right next to him. He was at the table across from her and she never even got the chance to speak to him. She's talked about this multiple times. She was investigated about this and she was cleared of any wrongdoing. So you got Angela Rye here. Look, all Black folk. No. Black faces in high places. And we're going to talk about these high places. Actively working against an organization that is trying to push for reparations for American descendants of slaves. That's what she was doing. And she's mad. She big mad. She folded her arms in the interview. She's really upset because her candidate and her friend, Kamala Harris, has no freaking Black agenda. None. She wants to focus on the way that people want to pronounce Kamala Harris's name. I call BS on that. People mispronounce my name all the time. Do you see me getting mad and screaming and like, oh, it's Sabrina, not Serena. It's Sabrina, not Selena. People mispronounce it all the time. She wanted to put more focus and frustration and anger about the mispronunciation of Kamala's name than she was to get angry about what Jill Stein was saying to her about what the Democratic Party has been doing to third-party candidates. She was more angry about Kamala's name than she was about the genocide in Gaza. She was more angry at Kamala's name than she was about the fact that Kamala has no Black agenda, no reparations plan. She was more concerned about that. But then you got to know where this woman comes from. Angela Rye. Angela Rye comes right from Capitol Hill. She worked with the Congressional Black Caucus, another damn group of Black faces in high places that don't do shit. She worked with them. How many of you knew that? She comes right from the Hill. How you think she'd get to be in all these little spaces? She's just another DNC shill spewing DNC propaganda, calling Black organizations Russian propagandists, saying that these people were paid by Russia. That's why she's in those spaces. She starts off the interview telling them, Kamala Harris, I know her. And she's interviewing, of course you know her, son. Of course you know her. You're in the right spaces. So Angela's job going into this interview was to ruin Jill Stein and to push up and protect her friend Kamala Harris. Everyone needs to understand that. She didn't like it too much because Jill Stein had to tell her she had white supremacy talking points, and she did. Let's listen.
Either you win or lose this election. There's really no in between. Dr. Stein, in 2002, you ran for governor of Massachusetts and you lost. In 2004, you ran for state representative in Massachusetts and you lost. In 2006, you ran for secretary of the Commonwealth. You also lost. In 2010, you ran for governor again, this time against the first black governor in Massachusetts, Deval Patrick. You lost. In 2012, you ran against this country's first black president, and you got just less than 0.5% of total votes cast. In 2016, you ran against Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, losing significantly with 1.4 million votes cast for you, but 0 electoral college votes, which I agree with y'all needs to be abolished. But 136 million people voted. And you lost that election as well. So I want to know what the pathway to victory is for you in 2024. It can't just be.
I'd like to provide.
So notice that Angela Rye didn't mention any of the races that Jill Stein won. So Jill Stein has served in local office before. Notice she didn't mention those, right? Notice she had to swoop in there. You ran for governor against the black governor. Governor Deval Patrick didn't do a damn thing for black people here, okay? Let's stop applauding these people just because it's a black face in a high place. Governor Deval Patrick didn't do anything for black people here in Massachusetts. He stood over in his little corner in Milton, Massachusetts, and hung out with the bougie white folk. Let's just keep it real, son. But let me let her finish.
A different
Shut your mouth. Watch your fucking mouth.
I want to provide. Can I respond, please?
Go ahead.
Well, I would like to respond. This is the framing of the empire and the oligarchy and white supremacy and colonialism, which wants you to feel that resistance is futile. This is about voter blaming and voter shaming.
Let me just No. What you're not going to say is that I'm ever parroting anything at the hands of white supremacy. This is something that's very different. This is me asking you again. It's a binary choice.
I'm just pointing out that these are the talking points.
No,
these are the same talking points that the DNC uses.
This is.
Yes, she does. She uses the same talking points as the DNC. But let me go ahead and say something here. First of all, it is not fair to compare a grassroots campaign to a campaign, and particularly a grassroots party, to a party that has millions of dollars and is backed by Wall Street and the military industrial complex. You can't even put them on the same footing. You can't. So everyone needs to understand that. The Green Party is a grassroots party. The Democratic Party is not. The Republican Party is not. That's like, should I make the comparison now or later? I'll make it now and later. That's like saying, let's put it this way. That's like saying you have a student that's at a public high school and you have a student at a private school, private high school. So public, private. That's like going to the student at the public university and telling them, how dare you not succeed? You have been in school for 4 years, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. How dare you not prevail? How dare your grades, how dare your GPA not be higher than the kid at the private university? Obviously, the side that has more funds and resources has a better chance of succeeding. You know, it's just common fucking sense. But that's not Angela's job. Angela's job is to parrot those DNC talking points.
Not DNC talking points. This is my research. And sadly for you, the research says you have never won an election. You have been successful in pushing forward certain agendas as an advocate, but you have never won an election as a candidate.
We are the one
is that a
party.
strategy?
So in order to win, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And in this case, it's many steps. Let me point out, please. You need to compare the Green Party, not with those who are taking money from AIPAC and the War Machine and Wall Street. You've got to compare us, you have to compare us to other grassroots, non-corporate.
So do you see how rude she was? And by the way, it started out this way. If you watch the full interview, she had that attitude. She came in like hostile. She came in ready to fight from the very beginning. But yeah, you are parroting white supremacist talking points, Angela. This is one of the most effective tools of white supremacy, is to get someone with a black face to do it for you. That's Angela Rye. That's Charlemagne the God. Just because they host a show called The Breakfast Club and they talk about hip hop doesn't mean that they're not pushing white supremacy from time to time when the Democratic Party tells them to, God damn it. That's Barack Obama. That's Kamala Harris. That's Jim Clyburn. Don't be twisted. They get people like them to do it for them. And she'll go along with it because she wants the money and she wants to be noticed. You want a lot of attention, Angela. You got a lot of attention today and yesterday. You wanted that attention, so now you got it.
We need
white supremacy.
She said I was parroting the talking points of a white supremacy.
See, that was my discipline.
May I finish, please? May I get to my point? May I please get to my
Dr. Stein, Angela Rye, close it out.
Let me finish, please. Thank you. You're trying.
You see this? So that's the end of the clip. But you see this? She was doing that before the white supremacist comment. Because the reality is this did not go the way that Angela wanted it to, because she called your ass out, which other people should have done. You guys have had Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, Candace Owens, all these other people that are conservatives come on to the Breakfast Club, and you never treated them the way that you treated Jill Stein and Butch Ware. This was an attack from the get-go. And that was the assignment that they had. Go in and attack them and destroy their campaign. Now, you guys may be wondering, why would they even have to do that? If people are saying it's not a serious campaign, why would they even have to do that? We'll show you in just a second. But Ados Tribe said it again. Angela Rye was pissed when Jill Stein said she was using white supremacist talking points. Oh my God, it was just cracking me up. And then I want to show you this part here, the resistance. So he said, I'm not a Jill Stein fan like that, but this was the moment when Angela Rye showed us that she is a boule key holder, because this reaction was uncalled for. These are the Negroes that stand by in the way of any Black progress. They are happy with the status quo. And they go on to say here, Jill Stein, I will end the genocide in Gaza. I will give Black people reparations. I will create multiple Black Wall Streets across the country. I will fight to end disproportionate police brutality against Black people. And this is Angela Rye. Like, I never seen anything like this before in my life. I'm like, how can you be angry about that? You know why she was mad? Because it's better than what Kamala has. Because when you look at Jill Stein's website and you look at the platform, you see it's actually detailed and there's substance there. There's meat there. You look at Kamala's website, you look at her platform, you got 2 pieces of bread, but you ain't got no meat in between. Every now and then we got to have some meat. That's why she was mad. She know Kamala Harris is an empty suit. She knows it. I'm going to show you a couple more responses here. Again, Ados Tribe. Is this the Kremlin one again? Yeah, I think I played that one already. Another comment here. I just watched the Jill Stein interview on The Breakfast Club, and damn, Angela Rye be shilling for the Democrats so bad, it's pathetic. You see, this got a lot of people's attention. Uppity African. Jill Stein went on The Breakfast Club, and it's telling to see how hostile Angela Rye is to the prospect of people exploring all electoral options. These tweets have a lot of views. Look at this. Over 308.3K views, over 3,000 likes. See, they exposed themselves. Reggie from Boston. I am truly wondering if we will look back after November and realize that it was Angela Rye's stunt that sank the Harris campaign. She came on to The Breakfast Club to take down Stein and Ware, but ended up proving why the American people deserve better than Harris and Trump. These are just facts. It is what it is. We can go on here. And this is another thing I was pointing out. The Breakfast Club was nicer to Nikki Haley than they were to Dr. Jill Stein. Let that sink in. The woman who told you that America wasn't a racist country, The warmonger, they were nicer to her than they were to Jill Stein, who had a black agenda. Because the Breakfast Club is there to preserve the status quo. They're not there to go for anything that's going to be outside of the norm or anything that's actually going to like give something to black people. Charlamagne the God just jumped on and said, yeah, I'll probably support Kamala Harris. She ain't got nothing for you. But that don't matter to him because he's rich. They don't care about these things. They're totally fine. But check out the comments. When you get a chance, look at the comments on the interview, please. I took 2 screenshots here. Come through Dr. Butch Ware. He is saying what needs to be said. I am voting for Dr. Stein and Dr. Ware, and I'm happy to do so. I pray others will come. Listen to this guy, Jonathan. That ain't it, Angela. So much love for Butch Ware and Jill Stein for coming on and speaking the truth. Their anger and attitude towards Dr. Stein is so confusing. I really hope they take the time to re-educate themselves on who they're voting for, especially Angela. Guys, I'm telling you, when you look at the comments on the video, most of the comments are negative towards Angela. So you don't believe me? Check the comments. Their own audience is telling them off. I am pleased to see that 99.9% of these comments I've read are strongly supportive of Stein Ware. People are seeing the truth here. And then this one here, I think, do you see how uncomfortable and terrified they are to abandon this 2-party system? Fear. It was very sad. Very, very sad. And then there's one more that I do want to show you that I forgot to go to. I'm sorry. There was another one that Butch said where he was talking about imperialism, and he said, you can't fearmonger me. Let me bring that one up too as well. Just pull that up here. It's on my page. Because I think that one, that might have been the first one that I posted on Twitter that it really took off. This one. Yeah. This is the one that got a lot of attention. So it got over 9,000 likes, which is good for me on Twitter. Whether you vote for Team Red or Team Blue, militarized fascism wins. I want you to hear what they say here. Listen to this.
Team Red might be speeding us towards a kind of societal collapse, right? And fascism. Exactly. But, right. No. But the thing is that the truth of the matter is that imperialism and fascism are 2 sides of the same coin. One is the side that faces outwards, and the other is the side that faces inward. And I made a social media post before I got brought onto the team that said it this way: is that whether you vote Team Red or Team Blue, militarized fascism wins, because the AIPAC and the weapons manufacturers are patrons of both networks. And just to return to that point, right? I've been on campuses. I organized a Palestinian Liberation Concert on October 21st. I organized a Black and Palestinian Solidarity panel at my local mosque on October 11th, 4 days after. Wow. Like, your brother was not backing down. And the Zionists came for my job within the month, okay? And, you know, a Negro still standing. So, but the point of all that is just to say that when we launched this campaign to try to actually bring people into this conversation, you see that this is actually where the American people stand. The American people do not want this forever war, and they do not want militarized fascists coming to their campuses to crack kids' heads open. I had to stand out in front of the encampment, and that's Democratic governor in California. That's Democrat, mayors in places like New York City. It's Democrats that are running cop cities. So the thing is, bro, fascism is already here. It's just that one of it is like fascism, and the other is fascism. But the truth is that the purple fascists, the purple imperialists, Team Red and Team Blue, are run by the same funders, and who funds you runs you. So there's a discourse about putting off fascism, but the reality is that fascism was already here because we already can't speak freely. We already have people, university presidents, losing their job under democratic regimes. We already have kids that are lining up for peaceful protests, having their heads knocked open, or you have the cops standing to the side at UCLA so the thugs can knock kids' heads open. So I'm sorry, the fear mongering ain't gonna work on me.
Yeah. So he really schooled them there. He really schooled them because they tried to fearmonger him about, but Trump bad and that type of thing. And so he knew his stuff. And you saw the look on Angela's face. She was very pissed. Like I said, she was brought in there to try to take them down, right? And if that wasn't enough, of course, AOC had to jump in. Now, remember, AOC attacked Jill Stein first. Last time we had this other discussion when AOC was attacking Jill Stein on Instagram. Now she comes back again because she says nobody needs talking points to know Jill Stein hasn't won so much as a bingo game in the last decade. And if you actually give a damn about people, you organize, build power and infrastructure and win. I'll play the clip in just a second. Let me tell you something. AOC, she has become very cocky and she's developed a large ego. And I would highly encourage anyone who lives in her district to run against her and to beat her because her ego needs to be broken. She needs to lose. AOC needs to lose, break her ego because she has become very cocky and condescending. And that project should have never happened. Everybody understand this project that we pushed to get people like her in. I want to remind you, it was Green Party people who helped AOC. She's saying all this stuff about the Green Party now, but they helped her. They helped her get to where she is. So she's referring to this comment here that Jill made right here.
And it is the talking point of AOC the other day, who is taking her marching orders from the DNC. This is exactly what they say, that we are only running for president.
Of color as parroting talking points instead of.
See what Angela Rye is doing? She's trying to do the identity politics, right?
Talking point of AOC the other day, who is taking her marching orders from the DNC. This is exactly what they say, that we are only running for president.
Of color as parroting talking points instead of us looking at basic math. The one thing that AOC has done that you haven't is win some elections.
And it is the
So first of all, again, you cannot make that comparison. AOC ran for Congress. Jill Stein ran for president. AOC has not run for president. 2, there is a difference between running in a party that is funded by Wall Street and the military industrial complex and running in a party that is fully grassroots. People have to understand that. AOC knows that. She's being a bitch on purpose. Angela Rye knows this as well. Again, don't forget this woman worked with the Congressional Black Caucus. She came straight from Capitol Hill. Don't forget that. Then you'll understand why she talks the way that she does. Oh, and another thing, Angela, let me make this very clear. This whole you can't criticize a woman of color because they're a woman of color. Try that with me. Because you might be able to say that stuff to Jill, but you can't say it with me. You can miss me with that whole woman of color bullshit. This is what I mean about the identity politics. And listen, I stand by my people. I fight for my people. And I talk about racial issues on this show and in activism and organizing. But people like Angela, they want to use it and use it as a shield so that nobody can criticize her DNC and her Democrat darlings because they are people of color. So you can miss me with all that, Angela. Miss me with all of that. Blackface in high place. Frowned upon reparations, smeared people about reparations. Get out of here. So AOC went on to say that, and by the way, if you look at her comments, she's getting roasted by a lot of people. A lot of people. So my response to this was, AOC, if you want to build an alternative party that's not status quo, stop talking and get to work. You have a massive platform. Why aren't you using your platform to build that alternative? Looks like you're the one that is not serious. See, this is the problem with AOC. She wants to point her finger at people and say, you're not doing it right. You're not organizing the way that you're supposed to actually build power. But you know what real activists and organizers do, AOC? When they see that someone is not doing something in a way that they feel would be most beneficial or helpful, a real activist, someone who actually gives a damn, They extend their hand and they offer to help. A bougie, classist, snob like yourself, what you have become, will sit back in a chair and point out what you see is wrong, but you will not offer to help. Now, you guys need to ask yourself a question. Do you want someone that is going to offer to help you? Or do you want someone who's just going to sit in a chair and point fingers and talk about your goddamn mistakes? The cockiness, the ego of this woman. Then she did this. This is a person running for president who doesn't even know how many U.S. representatives there are. If we want to be real about building alternatives to the status quo, we must build a left that is serious, powerful, and persuasive. This is not that. So we're going to play this clip here in just a second. But notice how she is not willing to initiate this. She's not willing to build anything. She's not willing to tell you how to do it. Now, this is what I call gatekeeping. The gatekeepers who, well, I know what we should do, but I'm not going to tell you how to do it. That's not organizing. That's not community. That's not unity. That's not solidarity. That's you looking out for your damn self. That's what that is. Now, this is the part that she's talking about here, and people have criticisms about it, but I'm going to show you how AOC is in a glass house and shouldn't throw stones.
How many voting members in the United States House of Representatives, Republican, Democrat, and Independent? How many total?
How many total are there? What is it? 600 some?
No, it's 435. How many voting members in the United States House of Representatives, Republican, Democrat, and Independent? How many total?
How many total are there? What is it? 600 some?
No, it's 435.
So a couple of things I want to point out. They're talking about the number of House representatives, right? So I think Jill said 600 and some people are like 535. People came up with different numbers, by the way. I'm seeing them even in the chat. It's 538, 535. And I'm pointing this out not to call you guys out, but to prove a point. For AOC to criticize her about this, it's one thing to not have a number exactly correct. But the reality is, most people don't know that. Most people don't know the answer to that. And I've seen a number of people online saying, oh my God, how does she not know that? I can pick up the phone right now and text all of my friends, and I bet you most of them don't know. Most people don't know. Most people are not paying attention. So most people are not into politics to this extent that we all are. So there's that. Now, some people can say, well, Jill's running for president, so she should know that or whatever. Okay, it is what it is. But the reality is that really something you need to focus on? Or do you need to focus on her policies? So here is Angela asking her about the number of House representatives instead of focusing on the platform and the policies that Jill was talking about to her. When she talked about policy, Angela wanted to try to cut her off every time. And another thing, for the people that are saying, oh, Angela knows, Angela has a computer right in front of her, which she looked at throughout the interview. So you don't know if Angela actually knew that either if she didn't look it up first. But what's funny is about living in a glass house and throwing these damn stones. Because AOC seems to forget, and you know Z Squirrel, don't mess with Z Squirrel. This account finds every damn thing, so you better not piss off Z Squirrel. I'm telling you right now. Z Squirrel seemed to find a video where AOC apparently didn't know what the three branches of government was. And she was in Congress. Here's you, a sitting member of Congress, being unaware of how many chambers Congress has and what the three branches of government are: judicial, executive, legislative. Listen to this.
Is that should we, and if we work our butts off to make sure that we take back all three chambers of Congress, all three chambers of government, the presidency, the Senate, and the House in 2020, We can't start working in 2020. Is that should we, and if we work our butts off to make sure that we take back all three chambers of Congress, all three chambers of government, the presidency, the Senate, and the House in 2020, we can't start working in 2020.
Now, you tell me what's more damning. Someone who is in Congress who doesn't know the three branches of government, or someone that's running for president and got the number wrong of the number of House representatives? Glass house, throwing stones. Now, Brianna Joy Gray, everybody is coming after AOC, by the way. I know some of you are not on Twitter, but Brianna Joy Gray said something interesting here. She said, AOC won't bring a fraction of the ire she has for Jill Stein to Kamala Harris or the rest of the genocidal Democrats. Jill is a genuine left candidate who shares AOC's ostensible values, but AOC will punch left to carry water for a candidate who won't even fight for 15. Pathetic. Isn't that sad? Crazy, isn't it? Why doesn't she have all that smoke? Why she ain't got all that smoke for Kamala Harris? Ronnie Acallick came in. Also came after AOC. Your party is carrying out a genocide that Jill Stein rightly opposes. Your word salad about infrastructure and organizing won't change that. Such a disappointment. Wow. And Ronnie is not usually the one to, but everybody, I saw it all. Max Blumenthal, Anya, Aaron, like the Gray Zone peeps, I saw them. I mean, I saw, like, people think it was just Green Party people or Jill Stein supporters going after it. No, it was not just them. Eric, can we go to the next part? So I wanted people to see that because, Eric, can we go to part 3? Thanks. I wanted people to see that because I want you to see what's happening. And then I'm going to show you these numbers. I'm going to show you why it's happening. Because the reality is that AOC apparently must have tapped other people on the shoulder and told them to go after Jill Stein too. And one of the people that went after her is the young woman, Representative Ruwa Rahman. This is the young woman that was not allowed to speak on the DNC stage. She was the Palestinian American woman that wrote her speech. It was already vetted and approved. And at the last minute, they said, you cannot speak on the stage after they allowed the Israeli family to speak on the stage. So here she comes attacking Jill Stein. And I got some words. I told you how I felt about that uncommitted movement, more so the leaders, because everybody in the movement doesn't feel the way that the leaders of the movement feel. So here she come in. This is so vile in so many ways. AOC was one of the first to call that what's happening in Gaza a genocide. And AOC, like so many of us, understand the serious threat of a second Trump term. No one would be talking about Stein negatively if she focused her efforts in safe states. So I got something to say about that. She's responding to Jill Stein responded to AOC. She said, well, AOC, you supporting genocide was not on my bingo card, but the Democrats have a way of changing people who say they're going to change the party from the inside. And Jill was right about that, right? So this woman here, peep this, fam. This woman, Ruwa, she's the one that they would not allow speak on the DNC stage. And she is coming to the defense of AOC. So let me point out something, fam. First of all, did you guys know that she's a representative in the Georgia State House? She's a Democrat representative in the Georgia State House. She is a politician. So when you think about that uncommitted movement, there were people that were leading the movement. One of them was Abbas was a DNC delegate. This young woman was a Georgia Democrat politician in the State House. And then you also had Rashida Tlaib's sister that was also a part of the leadership. That's why I told you that this movement was never serious about being uncommitted. What do you mean? The Democratic Party killing all your people. Oh, I'm just going to be uncommitted through the primary. And I want you to focus on something she said here. No one would be talking about Stein negatively if she'd focus her efforts in safe states. She told on herself. She told on herself. Because when she tells you that Jill Stein should have focused her effort in the safe states, that lets you know right there that the uncommitted movement was always going to support the Democratic Party. Everybody get this? What do you mean, only the safe states? She told on herself. That uncommitted movement, the leadership had decided apparently they were never truly going to be uncommitted. That's why they don't want Jill on the ballot in the swing states. Because if you were truly uncommitted, boo, it wouldn't matter to you that Jill is on in those swing states. But you were always going to support the Democratic Party, period. See, I ain't got time for it, fam. I ain't got time for it. And then another thing here that she put, oh my God. Didn't she say something about Trump's going to kill the people more? She is a mess. She is such a mess. I saw this woman like cry. I saw this woman crying on TV shows and saying they wouldn't let me speak and all this stuff. I'm telling you, don't be surprised if some of these people that were leaders of the uncommitted movement, don't be surprised if they were offered something. Because you ain't fooling me. Crazy, ain't it? But why are they doing this? You know, Jill Stein had some really good news. Really good news. Here's one of the pieces of good news. Here's Jill Stein, honored to be asked to speak at the National Arab American Convention in Dearborn, Michigan. It is truly inspiring to see the courage of Arab Americans who are standing up to stop genocide and lead the way to an America and a world that works for us. That's huge. The National Arab American Convention in Dearborn, Michigan. They didn't invite everybody. Everybody see this? And then I got something else, and we're going to dance for this for a second. We got a lot of good things to show. We're going to dance for a second. Because you see, because Angela showed her ass and because she had a bad experience with ADOS organization, you know, that Breakfast Club interview was trending. Clips of it were trending on Twitter, and it made its way around to ADOS members. And they saw some of these clips and they were like, hold up. This woman again? Angela Rye? The next thing you know, Jill Stein's message starts to spread to more people. So thank you, Angela, for acting like an ass. Thank you, AOC, for running your damn mouth. You're giving Jill Stein more promotion. You're giving her more attention. So much to the point where this came in from Yvette Carnell. And this really just knocked me out. Crazy how Dr. Jill Stein's interview on The Breakfast Club has Democrats unraveling. Would love to see her come to the ADOS Reparations Summit next month. The Green Party pro-reparation stance is something we should hear more about. Fam, let's go. Let's go. Hey. What? Fam. That's what I'm talking about. We had to play the music. We had to play it because look what happened. There's more good news. Oh, we're not done yet. There's more good news. Peep this. They tried so hard to kick Jill Stein off the ballot in Nevada. And because they did that, they purposely gave them incorrect paperwork, right? Because they did that, look what's happening now. The Democrats are dumb. Jill Stein is trying to take the Nevada ballot case to the U.S. Supreme Court. It appears SCOTUS may take the case. The Democratic Party messed up. Let's go. Let's go. Hey, hey. Supreme Court in the house. Supreme Court in the house. Let's go. Let's go. We got to stop the music now. I'm sorry. But I told you we're going to have a little bit of fun tonight. You see what happens when people try to do bad? Jill had shared this. We're taking the fight for democracy to the U.S. Supreme Court. They already presented this in the lower court, so that would be the next step. And here's the other thing. Because it is a conservative Supreme Court, I don't think they were, because it's a conservative Supreme Court, I don't think they're going to try to help out the Democratic Party. I don't think they're going to try to help out the Democratic Party. I don't think so. I'm just saying. Yeah, so there's that. And then there's a very big special announcement for Jill Stein's campaign. This is freaking huge, and you got to hear this for yourself. Don't worry, we'll bring the music back. Let's go.
Good afternoon, honorable leaders, distinguished guests, and fellow community members. I stand before you today on behalf of the Muslim American Public Affairs Council, a proud and unwavering voice of the Muslim American community in the political sphere. Our mission is to ensure that our voices are not only heard but respected, our concerns are not only raised but addressed, and our values are not only represented but reflected in the policies that shape our nation. We have long sought meaningful engagement with all political parties, assessing candidates not by their words but their actions. We ask one critical question: do they really listen to the Muslim community? Do they understand our struggle and invite us to actively shape our decisions, the country's decisions that affect us? Unfortunately, both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump have shown us that they do not. During Democratic National Convention, despite our considered efforts and rallying cries of many, our voices were silenced. Muslim and Arab leaders were ignored as well, we thought, to address the atrocities in Palestine. The majority of Americans, including many within the Democratic base, demand an end to Israeli war on Gaza, a halt to the flow of American weapons used to commit unspeakable acts, and accountability for those who perpetuate those horrors. Yet, Harris, through her actions, has made it clear that she will continue the policies of the current administration, offering unwavering support to Israel while turning a blind eye to the oppression of the Palestinian people. In contrast, Dr. Jill Stein represents leadership that our community has long sought. She has not only spoken for Palestinian rights, but she has traveled this nation to amplify our voices, to stand shoulder to shoulder with us, and to include us in her vision for a just and equitable future. Dr. Stein's commitment is clear. She has appointed a Muslim running mate, Professor Butch Ware, and has dedicated her campaign to fighting the genocide funded by American tax dollars. Her genuine care for our community was evident when she spent hours with us, listening, engaging, and offering solutions grounded in justice and humanity. The American people, by vast majorities, oppose using tax dollars to fund wars, to prop up unjust regimes, and ignore the cries of the oppressed. There is a hunger in this country for reform that Dr. Stein and her campaign represent. While we may not agree with every point in her platform, we recognize her as the most courageous and effective advocate for real change in both foreign policy and domestic reforms in this race. MAPAC stands firmly for the Muslim values of justice and integrity. Today, we declare our intent to position the Muslim community at the heart of the national movement to challenge a two-party system that has failed on so many fronts and so many Americans. North Carolina, as a pivotal swing state, is now the first to stand up and demand change. We hope that our leadership here will inspire other swing states to follow us. Let this be the spark that ignites a movement across our nation. Together, we will move mountains. Let it be known to all parties, to all political parties, paying lip service to our community will no longer suffice. The time for genuine engagement is now, and ignoring our voice will only cost you our support. Dr. Jill Stein and Professor Butch Ware, MAPAC proudly endorses your campaign. We stand ready to work alongside you to ensure that the Muslim community, especially in the critical state of North Carolina, rallies behind your movement for justice, peace, and truly democratic America. Let us build this movement state by state, and together we will shape the future. This endorsement is only for the presidential candidate, while remaining firm in our search for candidates on the local races, regardless of party affiliation, who stand for the investment of taxpayers' money to lift up their communities in the great state of North Carolina. The endorsement of congressional, state, and local races will be released in mid-October.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the Muslim American Public Affairs Council endorsed Jill Stein. This is historic. She's a third-party candidate. I would assume typically this would go towards the Democrat candidate. You see why they panicking? You see why Angela Rye is mad? You see why AOC is coming after Jill Stein? You see why they doing this? The Muslim American Public Affairs Council has just endorsed Jill Stein. Let's go! Hey! All right, guys, some good news. And now I have those numbers for you. This was just sent to me right before I went live. I want to show you why they're freaking out. Wait till you see these numbers. This shit is wild.
The arc of the universe is long, but it...
Oh, sorry. I think it was still playing. This came from Move On. Again, it was sent to me. See, it says friends, allies, and interested parties. So it wasn't sent from Move On to me, but someone that was apparently in this interested party part sent it to me. So I'm not giving out people's names, but look at this. We helped push out RFK Jr., but third party threats remain. Let's get to the numbers. I'm going to show you. These are the internal numbers they don't want you to see. Hold on. Dun, 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 dun. The remaining threats. Stein's vote total alone is enough to flip Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. See, this is what they don't want you to see. These mofos wilding out on Jill Stein. And this is why. I'm going to show you. See the numbers. Right now, the projected third-party vote share based on polling averages in the battlegrounds accounts for the full 2020 margin of victory in 4 crucial battleground states, right? So they're comparing 2020 to 2024. Peep this, fam. Projected third-party vote share in 2020. In Arizona, they're saying 6,775 votes. In Georgia, 84,999 votes. We're just going to round off up in this piece. 85,000. Michigan, 420,987 votes. Nevada, 11,243 votes. North Carolina, 265,000 votes. Pennsylvania, 41,000. Wisconsin, 214,000 votes. That is what is projected for the third party votes for 2024 in those swing states. This is why they're attacking Jill Stein. Now, when you look at all these CNN polls, all the Fox News polls, all the polls that I continue to show you on the show, they never show you this poll. And this is what I was trying to tell you. They saw the internal polls. Jill and them saw the internal polls. Kamala saw the internal polls, and I'm pretty sure Donald Trump saw those internal polls. That's why they freaking out. What's up, Notori? Should we do call in? I don't know. Eric, you think we should do it? Maybe we can have a short one. I feel like you should have a celebratory call in. What do you guys think? I don't know. Yeah, they done make right, Edward. And now Nevada, they may go to the U.S. Supreme Court. Yeah, like these people are stupid. You should have just left Jill Stein on the ballot in Nevada. Like that didn't make no sense to me. What's that, Roger? Oh, Roger said, yes, yeah. You guys see this, fam? Oh, and I can make this a little bit bigger for you on call-in too, but let me pop my big head back here. And then you can just see, this is huge. That is what they are projecting. Notice how much bigger this is in 2024 when you compare it to the third party, to the Biden 2020 state margin of victory for 2020. Everybody, this is why they're freaking out. Okay, Eric said we can do it. Thank you. Thankies. So, I don't know what to tell you guys. But I don't understand why you still mad, AOC, because weren't you complaining to Jill Stein that the party needs to grow, that we should be building that party? It should be growing. It looks like that's happening. Isn't that what you wanted? Didn't you advise AOC, Jill Stein that she should grow the party and she needs to be organizing? Well, it looks like that's what's happening. So you got your wish. She got the wish. I don't understand what the problem is. Let's go to the poll. Go to the poll. Go to the poll. Thank you for the poll results, fam. Why is AOC attacking Jill Stein again? 16% of you said Dems told her to. 6% said Jill is gaining Muslim support. 8% of you said AOC is trying to help Kamala. And 70% of you said all of the above. Wow. Yeah, 2,265 votes there. Thank you so much. I think we're going to do call in, guys. Eric, if you want to pop one for just a second so I can take a quick break. But I'm super pumped, you guys. Listen, I don't want to hear nobody complaining saying Jill Stein didn't try to grow the party or you guys don't get a higher percentage and all that. I don't want to hear none of that. I don't want to hear it because you see what's happening right now. The party is growing. You can see the percentages are growing. So that's what you guys wanted. That's what you got. Okay. All right. Eric, you ready? I don't want to hear it.
All right. We got us a party.
All right. I'll be back for call-in.
All right. How's everybody doing? I trust well on this big Friday night. And this was a big show. Let me just get a couple things adjusted here. And yeah, so we are going to do the Zoom Hangout, formerly known as call-in thing, at shortly. So this is, let's see, questions. How do we do call-in? So Sabrina is going to set up a room on Zoom, and then we'll be putting out, we'll be posting out on here the link for the Zoom Hangout, and then encourage everybody to jump in, as David says, zoom in, and that's where we want to hear from you. Putting your camera on is optional. You can come in and say your bit, or you can just listen in. It's all good. And I think we still have the 100 person hangout, but we'll figure it out. But yeah, it's things are not shrinking here; they're growing. And you're getting more people watching and more people into the Zoom Hangouts, and lots of people chatting. So let me scroll up to these super chats, and we'll knock off some of these. And yeah, this was a good comment. Yeah, the interview was fire. Dr. Joe and Dr. Butch said the damn things. Yeah, there's something big happening. and they are, they really couldn't ask for, a better. Oh, David says he hears crickets, yeah, in the background and on his. I probably shouldn't read the chat when trying to talk, but yeah, it's a nice New England fall, almost fall day out here, and we got the crickets out of the windows. But yeah, Dr. Jill, Dr. Butch, we're just killing it on that, and it was like they took this big run at them, and a bad move, because they're getting bigger than ever, and keep an eye on this. Something's happening. Roger wants me to put the link on the Savvy Sabs 2 website. Yeah, we're working on that, Roger. I think we'll get there. All right, thanks for the super chat, and we got like 50 super chats here, so we're going through them. Thanks for the super chat, Jack Uri, who says, have you guys read I can't read who that is, but a letter on The Guardian? It went viral recently and then got taken down. I'm not sure about that. You could send an email to Sabby about that if you want. Her email is in the description for under each video. And Tia Wheeler, a friend of the show, who says Charlemagne or whatever didn't learn from the Republican checking him. Yeah, it's I feel like some things in a show and some people got exposed in that video. I'll put it that way. Thanks for the super chat, Spade 2187. Charlemagne was played by both Biden and Kamala, and he's still supporting them. The Breakfast Club is trying to keep black people on Dems' plantation. Yep. And I always want to push back a little bit too when people say that a person was like fooled, or they were not courageous, or they didn't get it. I think you really just have to see them as corrupt and just taking the money. And thanks for this, David. Angela is working for AOC. The way AOC jumped on that one clip and ignored how Jill defended herself masterfully says it all. Butch did great also. Strong agree with you there, David, who we may hear from in the Zoom hangout. And thanks for this, Trusting Success, another one we see in the Zoom hangout. Actually, a lot of familiar faces here that we see out there that we get to hear from. Who says the Breakfast Club is one of many pit bulls for the Democrats, blinding and deceiving black voters. And thanks for the super chat, Justin B. Rudolph Butch Ware is so much fire. Yeah, he's been a really awesome addition to the campaign, to the team, and it's really it does seem like sky's the limit. Thanks for this one, Samud Sterling. Don't forget to ask Kamala's family members, like Ella Emhoff, why they're silent about the G side. That is a good question. One thing that occurs to me, like during that debate, like Trump was talking about Kamala's parents and her lineage, and about her Black Jamaican father. And I was waiting to see if Kamala was going to like come back and say, oh, and how the father was a Marxist, and so she's suspicious. I was wondering if Kamala was going to come back and say, well, yeah, but he doesn't like me. So, and thanks for the super chat, Isabel H. Who says, Jill Stein, 2024, cry demo rats, cry harder. And the thing I always say too is that we criticize and come at the Democrats a lot in all this stuff, but we have just as much fire for the Republicans. I think it's a mistake to see them really as any real separation. And it's a uniparty. They're both working for the billionaires. They're both corrupt billionaires, MIC, which means military industrial complex, the war machine, the huge corporations. It's all the blob. It's all the big club. And so any fire we bring to Democrats, we're bringing to Republicans too. Never doubt that. And any criticism and fire we bring to Kamala and Biden, we're also bringing to Trump. Thanks for the super chat, Mullion Flower. When the Greens, Yeah, he said when the Greens are the only party that RFK needed to join. Right. Thanks for that. And thanks for this generous super chat. Blueser1. I used to think Rye was cute. Now I have RBF when I see her. And I'm not going to say what RBF means because I'm not going to get in that kind of trouble. Thanks for this super chat, Baby Ethernet. It's giving DNC informant brainwashing our youth. And he's talking about what was happening there on the Breakfast Club. And thanks for this one, Larissa. All that knowledge dropped by Jill and Butch, and it was crickets. But don't dare mispronounce that lady name, and they won't. STFU, right? A Delta, and I'm not sure what that is, but thanks for this super chat. And thanks for this one. Infamous Eli is saying cooking. Yeah, Sabby was definitely cooking through this one tonight. Big show. Thanks for this one, Summit Sterling. Sabs says, I've done my research, just like Taylor Swift said in her endorsement letter. Jaja equals haha. By the way, they're all bought. I concur on that. And thanks for the super chat, Lawn Guy. Joe Biden ran for president like 15 times. Oh my God, that is a really good point. All this stuff where they're saying that, oh, Jill never wins and she's been, like not serious as a candidate or whatnot. I mean, you definitely would have said that about Biden until Barack Obama came to to rescue, like when Biden ran. Before he won anything, like he had a whole bunch of runs at president and he was kind of a joke. So yeah, that's a really good connection there. Lawn Guy, 1990. And also thanks for this one. CC says Biden started running for president before electricity. All right. And also thank you, Lawn Guy, saying Sabby, go on the Breakfast Club. I mean, of course it'd be great, but I think they're going to be afraid to bring someone like her on now after they just got bodied. And thanks for this one, Larissa, who says, per the comments, because of her, they're voting Jill. I mean, I think in general, Jill picked up a lot of attention and support. And thanks for this one, super chat, American Man. As I said, white women will vote MAGA because black women will show them who they are. The quote, black woman, Kamala is vindicating black men for Trump. Mm-hmm. And thanks for the super chat, Mike Lewis. The only thing I have for Angela I and Charlemagne the Fraud is a biscuit, butter, and syrup and TSP dancing music. Thank you for that. And David had a nice little aside here saying, who funds you, runs you. Well put. And thanks for the super chat, Arthur Handy. As Jill Stein's momentum increases, I predict she'll get an invite to The View. They'll try to bury her because Angela and the BC, the Breakfast Club, failed to do so. Well, I mean, I hope they give it a shot. I mean, that would be a pretty epic to see her on that. And thanks for this one, David Giltonen. For Angela, RBF is a feature, not a bug. Okay. And thanks for this one, Lawn Guy. What has AOC won? Sunscreen legislation. Yeah, as far as what she's brought for working people, what she's accomplished. Yep. What's she done for us, right? And thanks for this super chat, Buckeye fan, who says, Mark Lamont Hill and Van Lathan called Dr. Ware corny for showing the comments on the Breakfast Club's video. Okay. Yep. And thanks for this one, Sean Flores, who says, Angela Rye wants to be taken seriously, but her attitude is giving Basketball Wives cast member, not serious political analyst. I hear you. And thanks for this one, New York Varsity Sports, Jason, who we often see in the Zoom Hangout, who says, AOC is worse. She won and we lost. When things go right, she is the first to jump in front of the parade. When things go wrong, blame others. Yep, which is basically AOC being standard politician. Next for this one, Cam 35mm, who says, a start for that blue dress when you debate Angela. Oh, saying that this money is a start. Okay. And thank you, Blueser1, who says, Rye has the gall to have raised a fist avatar on her X page and puts her hand to the plow to support a genocidal campaign. The trash our ancestors warned us about. I get you. Thanks for that. And let's see. We got a few more here. Are you ready to jump on Super Chat? You want me to do a few more?
You can go ahead. I'm about to send this poll result to somebody too.
And I just did that one. Let's see. Thanks for the Super Chat. Edward Shore, who says, my question for AOC, what happened to force the vote? It's a good question. And, you know, she didn't force anything against the power. And thanks for this one, Chris Ero. In Angela's defense, she treated Jill honestly like the threat that she is. Oh, that's an interesting take. That that it showed that they're afraid of her and have to come after her. Mm-hmm. And thanks for this super chat, Charlie Mack, another friend of the show, who says, "Candy bar to Sabby, Venkman to Egon. You've earned it. By the way, Shonda's hubs is in ICU now. Please help him, fam." Yeah, and of course, you know, we're all sending our best wishes to Shonda and family as they're going through some stuff.
Yeah.
Next for this one, Louise Brooks, who says, if they're coming after Jill, they are scared. They know they have no platform and a crap candidate. Yep. And thanks for this, New York Varsity Sports, who sets the record straight here. All right. He says, it is 435 voting U.S. representatives, 6 non-voting. Would give you 441, but total reps is more than 600. Angela is wrong in both cases. And I mean, you know, congratulations to Angela Rye to be able to read from Wikipedia. Okay. And if you put the Wikipedia article in front of Jill, then she would give you the numbers. I mean, there's this whole thing. I mean, even like in the presidential debates, like it's they want them to be like, you know, no notes and no staff and no hints and no nothing. And it's like why are we valuing this in our presidents? Like are we going to have the president like have no notes and no staff while he's doing his presidenting? I mean, it's really ridiculous. I mean, I want someone who's really capable of using a laptop and taking advice and leading a team, and not someone who's just really good talking on their feet. Yeah, we get the best people when we go for that. And thanks for this one, Shalom, who says, the real question is, how many of those bastards in that Congress are actually doing anything for the American people? Yeah, I mean, they do really good stuff for the billionaires and for the mega corporations. I like to call them Congress critters, and we know who they work for, and it ain't us. But that also, you know, that also gets into the challenge here, right? That's the thing we got to fix. That's the thing we have to keep bringing up. You know, always focus on the money and the corruption and demand better. And you get to the solutions. MCDS, I just did it. Next to this one, Sparky, who says, movements are infiltrated by the feds mighty quick these days. Some are fed from the get-go. Mm-hmm. Right. And thanks for this super chat, Million Flower, who says, Green Friday evening, listening and learning from Sabby Sabs and Sabby Liz Turns. Okay, well, whatever that is, we'll take it as a compliment. And thanks for the super chat. And thanks for this one, Juliet Leak, who says, thank you. And thank you, Juliet. And appreciate you, and people like you are longtime listeners and watchers, I should say, viewers. Thanks for this super chat, Wasim, who says, I called it several weeks ago when Palestinian misleadership, when the Palestinian misleadership class, who didn't care about the Palestinians, like ice cream, had DJ Khaled and Rashida Tlaib's theater. All right, thanks for that one. And Sparky says, great work, Sabby. Thank you, Sparky, for the super chat and the encouragement. And thanks for this also, Wasim. He says, also, they say attacking a person of color, but yet they are attacking the only Jewish female candidate. Yeah, I mean, you can play that game both ways, right?
Yep.
And thanks for this super chat, Brendan McNamara. Someone tell AOCI Pelosi and the DNC they effed up big because Americans are no fans of bullies. Punching down is anti-democratic and shameful. All right, thanks for those. Do you want to read the finishing ones?
Yeah. Okay, where we're at.
I'll give you the next one.
Joan. Okay.
I highlighted it.
Joan, thank you. Appreciate and love you. I literally stood up and danced. Thank you. Yeah, happy dance in the house. We need some good news, guys, right? We need some good news. So I figured, I was like, yo, wait till they see these numbers, they're going to flip out. Thank you, Wasim. One last thing. Portland, Maine City Hall, who is run by a Green Party mayor, divested 85 companies associated with Israel. I saw that. That's another big one as well. Thank you, Roger. Put your link on the Sabby Sabs 2 website. Oh, yeah, the link is pinned in the chat. Do you need it, Eric? You me send it to you? Oh, I think you're muted.
That old trick. I'll get it from the chat. You can keep going.
Okay. Thank you, Shalon. Not sure if you saw the Huru verdict yesterday. I did. Guilty of conspiracy, but acquitted on foreign agent charges. Yeshatella spoke after. I'm in Tampa area, so saw it live. Not sure if it was recorded. Yeah, I think that clip should post for that this weekend. But yeah, I covered that. I'm not sure if they posted it yet either. I'm going to ask Nick about that. Shout out to Just Mom for becoming a new member. What's up, Just Mom? Thank you, JT Coin Rings. I'm new here. I am definitely love the platform. Thank you and welcome. Welcome all. Hells yeah, man. You guys ready for call-in? I know we did it already this week, but I figured this is a special moment, so I figure we should probably do it.
We do have a couple of Rock and Rumbles. I'm also bringing up this Zoom link at the same time. Let's let that do its thing. All right, let me see what I can show here.
Thanks, Margaret. Jill Stein pointed out that the Green Party is not taking votes from Democrats. The Green Party is getting votes from people who'd stay home. There it is. I'm telling you, a number of people told me, like, after AOC started attacking Jill the first time, these people weren't even going to vote, but they said, fuck it, I'm going to go out and vote anyway, just to piss off AOC, because they said that was ridiculous. Yeah, fam.
Like, did we just have somebody gift some memberships?
Did
we just have somebody gift some memberships?
Oh, Joan Keene. Thank you. I always say Joan. I think it's Joanne. Joanne Keene gifted 5 Sabby Sabs memberships. Thank you. And congrats to whoever got those. Awesome.
Sorry, it just takes me a second to put this link in save. What was the passcode? Can you read me off the passcode?
Oh, yeah, I'm supposed to put that on here. The passcode is
928. I got it. 125 is showing on my other screen.
Yeah, let me put it up here so people can see it.
And this is the September 13th Hangout. Update things here. All right, I think that should get us out there. Double check. Yeah, all right. So now people can go to Sabby Sabs 2. Let me bring up these other chats and so forth. We've got Roger in the Rockfins. Let me scroll this thing here. He's got like 3 in here. All right, put that up. Do. There we go.
Okay. Oh, let me put this down for just a second so I can read it. Sorry.
There we go. I got it. All right.
Thanks, Roger. Angela weaponized race by saying you ran against the first black governor and the first black president. Like, how dare you run against the first black this or that? Do we make the same requests of whites in sports? Sharpton introduced her to TV on his MSNBC show Politics Nation during the Obama years. Common broke up with her twice. Oh, I forgot about Common the rapper because he didn't want to have kids with her. Gee, I wonder why. Damn. Yike. Thanks for this one as well. First, Butch, assalamu alaikum. There it is right there. Y'all see how political parties make you sell out your values, your soul, and your people. If she was an independent politician like all Georgia voters, no way would this woman have come out her mouth and say some throw her people under the bus crap like that. Political parties need to go. SCOTUS not helping Dems is exactly what I was thinking too, Sabs. Yeah, they're not. It's a conservative court. They're not going to. Thank you for this as well. Last time I was here, I forgot to say rest in peace, James Earl Jones. Now I have to add Frankie Beverly to that as well. I grew up listening to his music when I was a teenager. I know your dad liked him without actually ever meeting your dad, Sabrina. They did. My parents love Frankie Beverly. Frankie Beverly Amaze. Thank you for this as well. Sabrina and everyone, let us never forget that the real good news of the night is your first story about the workers making moves at Boeing, thus putting into practice what Revolutionary Blackout always speaks about, going outside of electoral politics and making it happen. We must never forget the grassroots, the proletariat, the workers grabbing that bull by the horn, twisting it to break its neck. Okay. And thank you, Saka Papa. Agree on not taking on Z Squirrel unless you want to lose your nuts. Listen, that Z Squirrel account finds everything. So don't piss off Z Squirrel, okay? All right.
Presume Hangout. You can go to sabbysabs2.com, or you can get the link right out of what's in the chat here, and we should see you in there. Let me work on getting in there myself.
All right. So I just started the Zoom room. I think I do have a limit of 100 people, but I'm working on that for next time. Okay, guys. And I just ask that you mute yourself, please, when you come in. And Eric, if you can raise your hand, I can go ahead and make you a co-host so you can mute people. And then the way it works, guys, if you want to speak on Zoom at the bottom where it says reactions, click on reactions and then click on raise your hand. And that passcode is 928125. But I think it looks like you guys are already getting in anyway. Okay. Based.
Oh, no. Right, it says the meeting is at capacity.
You're not in yet?
No.
Oh, boy. Eric, I thought you were already in.
I was busy doing all the links and stuff.
Okay, Eric, I'll have to text you and let you know when there's a spot. I'm sorry.
You got it. All right, we got that up.
Oh, you said you are here?
No.
Oh.
I was just talking about.
All right, well, let me
get going. We'll figure it out.
All right, I'll text you and let you know when a spot opens up. I'm sorry. All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging with me. I'm not live this Sunday because I'm speaking at a worker strike back event. So I'll see you again Tuesday night. Until then, have a good night. Keep up the fight.